Okay, good evening, everyone. Chris, if you would do the roll, please. We'll call the meeting to order.
Deanna Carlson,
Here.
Todd Lavieri,
Here,
Michael Chen,
not here.
Chris Labrise is here, Victor Alvarez,
Here.
Maria Weingarten,
Here.
Robert Hamill.
I am here and I'll hope to get my camera on here in a couple minutes.
Okay, James Yao,
Here.
Nicholas Matrakis.
Here.
Jan Schaefer.
Here.
Steve Doka. Absent. Okay.
We need an alternate for.
Michael. Jan.
Jan? Yeah.
Okay, I nominate Jan.
Give me a second. Maria, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay. James, you get the Bob Spangler Award, right? That's the award for walking in as the roll is being called.
Okay.
And your name right when you sit down. It's not an easy award to win, but it happens occasionally. So congratulations. You get nothing for that award, by the way. Okay, so we have a few topics tonight. I did ask the Board of Ed to come back both on operating and capital, so we'll kick off with that review.
Thank you for inviting us back, and thank you for all the time and energy I know you put into reading through the documents and understanding the budget and generating the conversations that we've been having. In front of you, I provided a couple of pages just for some context. Then we're very happy to get into some of the specifics. We've taken a close look at the capital, and we'll spend some time tonight talking about some adjustments to capital. And we have, of course, been thinking and talking and working through the operating piece as well. So I just thought it might be helpful just for some of the regional context. On the top page of the packet that you have, we've pulled together where our surrounding districts are just as far as their requests, as far as superintendent's request and the Board of Education's request. Of course, in every town, this is a work in progress and things are adjusted and changed, but I thought the context could be helpful, especially given that the number feels higher than it has been. You know, we're talking about mid-4s. We really haven't been talking about mid-4s in the last 7-10 years. And there's the economy is a part of that, everything in the context is part of that. So we're all sort of facing some of these same headwinds. And I thought it'd be helpful just to have that context. As you look at these, and again, we don't know where it's going to end for any one of these towns, but this is just where they are as a snapshot today. We are right in the middle of the 9 districts that are listed here. We are 5 of 9 as far as that goes. And we're right at the average. We're at 4.65 is the average of these. And we're, as you see, 4.67. So we're right at the average of the region and right in the median of the list. So I just thought that context could be helpful. On the second page, in our previous conversation, there was a question about turnback. At the end of the year, if we have X approved for our budget, and so do we always end exactly at X, or is there some kind of a delta there that's turned back? So we did a 10-year look back to get a sense of where that is, and thought that could also provide some helpful context. And as you look, going back to 14-15, with one exception, we've turned back funds each year. And of course, in the 1920 year was the COVID year. So there's quite a bit of turn back there with programs and closing the buildings and things we had to do in the spring. And then in 2021, there's quite a bit of turn back because of, if you'll recall, the athletics programs weren't running the same way. So there was savings in transportation. VPA wasn't running the same way. So a lot of that was some of those extra programs and things that we were able to turn back. But looking through this list, it's an average of about $690,000 per year over these last 10 years. And and I know averages are tough when you have large numbers and outliers. So if you look again at the median, it's at about $557,994. So it's about $560,000 is sort of right in the middle. And so that's close to the average. So I think that's a pretty accurate, just again, context, and a question came up. And as you know, the way the Board of Education works is a little different than the other town agencies, where it's a single appropriation that's then is managed by the Board of Education and you receive the updates of the statement of accounts each month, and the board's continually looking at it for the resources committee. So we always try to keep our finger on the pulse of where we are with that budget and managing it accordingly. So thought both of those exhibits could be helpful. Again, just for context and because some of those questions came up in our conversation earlier. The next sheet is just very quickly. I know we've all received some emails regarding our insurance plan and comparisons to our neighboring district over in Darien. So I just thought a little context around that might be helpful also. We have not had time to do a longitudinal study and a deep look back or anything else, but I do think context is important here. And so one of the things to know about these two different plans, there are some fundamental differences. One is that our plan is self-insured. So in the number that you see in our budget, it is our anticipated claims, it's our fees, it's stop loss costs, but it's also other costs that we have, life insurance and other things that are also part of some, in that ISF number. So just looking at the number itself in totality isn't an accurate view. So what we've done here is simply pull from 23-24 the premium that Darien paid, because they're not self-insured, they're fully insured, right? So what they do, they receive a number from their insurance company for their premiums, whatever that number is going to be, based on all the actuarial work that happens at the company. And then they, based on their negotiated agreements with their unions, with their associations, determine how much of that premium is going to be paid by the budget and how much will be paid by the members in that. And that's their involvement, right? They pay the insurance company, who then covers their own stop loss, their own risk, their own margins, all of those pieces. Because we're self-insured, we do it quite a bit differently. So we could look at the 23-24. We know that that's the premium that they paid. We don't know what the actuals were, because they don't need to, they're not concerned with that necessarily, because they get the number from the insurance company. They're the ones that are doing that. We go into the detail that we do because essentially we're making some of those decisions that are typically made by an insurance company if you're fully insured, the amount of risk that we'll take on. So that's where we set our stop loss at 300,000. The corridors with the aggregate stop loss at 20%. All those are the decisions that we make as the self-insured versus the insurance company making and then just sending the bill, right? So if we look at 23-24 for medical, vision, and dental, the premiums in Darien totaled up to 17,157,000. In that same year, here in New Canaan, our premiums totaled the medical, vision, and dental claims. So again, these are the actual claims. And then we have to include the stop loss fees and then the other fees that are paid. So you'll hear that we use Cigna, right? But Cigna is our agent essentially, but we pay our claims out of the Internal Services Fund. So if you are fully insured, you pay your premium to a company who pools that money with their other money and they pay your claims, right? What we do is we pay Cigna a set amount to be the administrator, but we hold the money ourselves and pay the claims directly out of that Internal Services Fund, right? It may not seem like a big difference, but it is. And I'll get to that in a moment, sort of some of the reasons why. So we have to include in this to be as close of a comparison as you can, although again, you can't really, because ours are actual claims. We don't have the actual claims from Darien, but if you do that, you have to include stop loss and then the fees, net of our RX rebates. So we receive 100% of the prescription rebates back into our plan. And that's something that Joe Spurgeon fought for us, made sure that we get, and he checks every year. That has come up to about $500,000 a year, quite a bit. So that plus 100,000 covers all of the fees for Cigna and other fees that might be, incorporated into this. So our total cost in 23-24 was $16,856,351. So again, Joe has taught me, and if we want to go 2 levels deeper than where we are now, I'm going to have to bring him in. But I wanted to simply show you these numbers and just give that high level context because there's always more complex. And so we're glad if the Board of Finance or other town bodies felt it was important to do a deeper dive on this, but you're really not comparing apples to apples because of one being fully insured versus us being self-insured. Because again, we have the actual and the claim number. We don't know if in 23-24, we don't know if their insurer made profit, took a loss, broke even. We don't know that, but we know what we did because we're self-insured. We're able to track that. Now, the one thing that's important to remember, I mentioned the turn back of about 2.5 million, whatever it was, during that COVID year, because we underspent. Well, the same thing happened with insurance. So because people weren't using insurance, whatever, we saved over $1 million in our insurance plan because of the COVID and the shutdown and all of that. If we were fully insured, then the insurance company would have saved $1 million. Because we're self-insured, we did, right? So that's your advantage to being self-insured versus being fully insured. There's disadvantages too. When you're fully insured, you write a check and somebody else deals with everything that we are talking about and thinking about, the reserving, the stop loss and all of that. But we feel like our system is the right one. And in talking with Joe and talking with others, they don't know an instance where a fully insured plan ran better than a self-insured plan for a town who has the capacity to manage it well. And our town certainly has the capacity to manage it well.
Just a quick question then. So, but this is different. So this fully insured plan is different than being on the state plan. Or is-
Correct. That's a third option.
Right,
That is akin to being fully insured.
right.
The difference there is it's not an HSA, it's a PPO. So, and it's through the increases year to year and everything else are based on statewide trends and numbers. And there's a surcharge in Fairfield County. There are a lot of different dimensions to the state plan.
Yeah, I just heard about that surcharge
Mhm.
that they give to Fairfield County.
I feel like it was my biggest contribution as a Board of Ed member and chair, not to put the Board of Ed on the state plan when there was a lot of pressure.
It was a big one, not your biggest, but it was a big one.
So is it safe to say that the 16.2 million that Darien pays, I guess you could argue, well, plus that includes dental. So it's actually 16 plus 2 plus 800. So it's really 17 million, really 17.1 versus our 14.8 plus stop loss. That's really the way I look at that, which is the stop loss, which is literally our circuit breaker for real trouble. So do we know what the insurance dollars per insured person? You would have that obviously, but that would be interesting to compare that across all these towns. That would be interesting to know, regardless of their plan. Just we pay whatever it is, a few
Like
$1,000s per person.
You'd have to do it by lives.
Probably what we'd want to do is see what the plan cost is per person. Because again, so we know but we generate our premium in-house.
Right.
So it's it's a little challenging
Yeah.
to do the comps.
Yeah.
And again, it's a little challenging to get the actuals.
Well, it's
because
the tension in our process because
Mm.
their process, they get a number. Insurance number, the company gives them a number, it's $18 million, whatever it's going to be this year, the conversation's over.
they pay 80%.
We're guessing,
Mhm.
and we have to guess. The bias is always to guess high because you don't want to be under, which is fine. Believe me, I get it. You have to have a number that's fair and meaningful and achievable. I don't know. Do you have any?
Well, there is
I think the
there's a
process
second-
works.
Yeah,
And, we are in the process of the methodology that we have. I don't think anyone's advocating to change it.
Right. We've looked at a couple of things. There is another method of control that I think is helpful to know about, which is that aggregate stop loss number.
Yeah.
So when we set our projected claims, our anticipated claims, we tried it. We're tight, and Joe is doing this and doing all of what he does as an actuary and an underwriter and all that. And then it does go to the insurer for the aggregate stop loss, which is 20% over whatever those projected claims are, is fully covered, right? So they also take a close interest in what those projected claim number is, because if they feel that it's too low, then they'll negotiate around where they believe it should be based on the data. So there's a tension there that's, I think, constructive, because we have a second group that takes a close look at that. And
Mhm.
they're incentivized for
Mhm.
that number to be, accurate, because they're responsible for 20% over it. So you do get at least a second really deep dive in those projections and those numbers, and there's a lot of conversation that occurs there too.
Also, simply put, we sort of run ours to break even. It's not a profit generating. Now, you may have a surplus for obvious reasons, right? The claims could just be below what the estimate was. Fine, I got it.
Sure.
But that goes into the services fund, and that gets floated and managed every other year. You have Darien. I don't know if there are other towns that are like this, but their process is totally a profit-driven model. Smart insurance people that know how to designed this. So it's designed to have a profit in it, and ours is designed to be kind of break even, right? I mean, with,
And you see that in the margin line.
Yeah.
So the insurance company might put a 2-point margin, a 3-point margin in order to create enough room for them. Our margin's 0. We don't build margin into our plan. So we go straight on those projections, and you can see that on Joe's build when he builds it. There are some districts that do, some towns that do build in a margin of 1, 2, 3%. We never have, because we know that, we run it tightly. We know that if there were to be some kind of an issue, we'd come back and we'd talk and we'd all get on the same page with whatever it had to be.
Now, Brian, how do you account for the premiums? And how do you account for it and Darien account for it?
So what happens in a fully insured plan is they are given the number, and then they take that and they're dividing it by members. And then and what plan they're in, and then they're looking to see what the negotiated agreement is for each one. So whether it's 85% goes to the district and 15 to the employee, or 80-20, or whatever the breakdown is. And then they will, they cover their side, and then the employees contribute their side.
So
So
your employees contribute a certain amount of money,
they do.
right? So where do you account for that? Is that taken out of the gross number, the 16.8? So your cost is less $2 million of premiums?
Correct. It's
So you
built in
take it
as
off
income.
after, so your net cost is 14 something.
So this cost was the all-in projected, the claim cost.
Yeah, so
So
from
this
that,
included.
so the town didn't have to pay all that out because
Correct.
there was a few $1 million of
Correct.
premiums.
Correct.
Okay, in the case of Darien, where is their premium? Is it net of this number, or do they deduct that too from the 17 million?
My understanding of this is that this is their gross, and they paid their portion of this premium cost, and the employee paid the other portion, but this is the gross between the two.
So that number is already included
that-
somewhere in this.
seem right?
This is what Anthem bills.
I believe that's right. So I believe, again, I don't want to go too deep into this because Joe put this together in response to an email that I wanted to have a chance to talk about, and I'm glad to do a deeper dive, Chris,
Yeah, that
anytime.
might be a good thing
But-
to
You know
do
what?
at some later point.
why don't we do, we can have them come back in May or June and do just an analysis for us. We'll put together some questions that we can structure that and have them come back and give us a good re-education on where we are in the world of insurance and what are things happening. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Let's do that.
yeah, I think it's
I mean, I
a
don't
good
think it's
idea.
going to change anything for this budget, but it might change something if we get, down the road for another time. But is
Just,
that okay with everybody? I think,
I agree with you. I think the cost per participant to the town, right? I mean, it's a relevant number, and I would want to compare it across the state. A big insurance company has things like an SIU to investigate fraudulent claims, right? And we probably don't have that, and we have administrative costs also, embedded in the numbers somewhere. I'm not quite sure where, but.
those are the fees of the administrative costs, that 100,000. But yes, I do. I think that's a great, we'd love to do that,
Let's do
because
that.
I always learn when we have Joe come down too, and we have some great
on the town
conversations.
side.
It's,
We
You
could,
know,
I
but
I
the-
mean, they work well together.
Yeah,
So Larry and
yeah,
Joe could
perfect.
present together and.
and go through it. One important takeaway is the money that we pay to Anthem is to be the manager or the administrator, right? Which is significantly less than you would pay if you're fully insured, right? So when you talk about going out to bid, because we hold the funds around this, you're talking, it's much less than $1 million, right? For what we pay Cigna. As a matter of fact, that's included in the 100,000, and that's brought down because of the RX rebates and other things. So you're talking about, it's important we keep a close look at it. We keep a close eye on it, but there's not big savings, if any at all, to switch administrator and disrupt the plan when we're paying those costs directly. It might be different if the whole 16.2 million was going to a company, then it might be different. And there'd be more incentive to go out to bid perhaps, but being self-insured, there's
And do we
less.
know how many of those towns in the district from the first page self-insure?
How many towns are self-insured?
In our district?
Actually don't.
It would be-
It's a mix. We're not the only ones.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a mix.
Well, we can find that out.
I'm happy to find out.
I'd be
Mhm.
curious.
It's an easy question.
Which ones are on the state plan?
I know Westport is, they were looking to get off and they wound up going back in. That's the only one I'm sure about is
And
Westport.
Wilton, I had
I'd
conversation.
want, yeah, okay.
Greenwich is
And they
on-
got out? Did you just say that?
Westport was, they were in, they were out, they went back in. It's been a little bit of back and forth for them based on.
They were fully insured though. So like, you know, because when we looked at it, again, it's like, once you leave a self-insured plan and you get all those reserves, they go away. You'll never go back to, and we talked
Mhm.
about this, you won't go back. So, you know, in Greenwich, the same thing. They went back and forth between fully insured and state plan, looking at state plans because, well, you were there. You know,
In fact, I
because
had a
you can.
conversation with my counterpart in Greenwich last night.
mhm,
They're still on the state plan
Yep.
and they're expecting and they're expecting the bill to be 10 to 12% growth plus the 2%
Yep.
regional uplift. It's big. It started out as 5%, 6%.
Well, and then you're also bringing in, you know, I mean, we've talked about this and I'm a little dated now at this point, but the state plan merges in police and fire and, you know, all kinds of different risk groups and
Interesting.
health.
Yeah.
So, you know, we tend to have a healthier pool, a younger pool, a healthier pool. And the state plan participants tend to be in riskier professions, you know, less healthy. And so the premiums are just a lot.
When
And
you
it's-
go into a fully funded plan, the insurance companies will look at your 12-month rolling average claims. State plan doesn't do that. They take everybody. They're just trying to expand the pool.
Yes, they are.
And to that point, so when we do the analysis of the review in June, we look at how rich is the plan versus other towns. How much do you push to the employees versus absorbing?
Mhm.
And then what we may know or not know from Anthem, right, was the name? We have a younger population, you say, but maybe we have, or they have more dependence on that, right? And that also adds, up. So if they have claims, it goes against the self-insured.
Sure.
So a lot of factors. So to your point, it's not,
It's not apples to
yeah,
apples.
yeah, exactly.
It's not. Yeah, and just one last piece about the state plan for what it's worth is it's a PPO, right? So we've moved to HSA and we've done it with high deductible plan and everything else. So it's a fundamental shift in practice and understanding for staff. There's quite a bit of disruption.
Also, when we meet in June, I'd like to see a reconciliation between this schedule that you put together and page 104 of your budget that is showing for fiscal year 2024, total expenditures of 18.929. So
Sure.
I'm just not sure how we get from these numbers to those numbers, so that would be a good thing to cover.
Those additional things that are included in that deposit in the ISF and things, so we can break that out. And actually, it may even be, I don't know what page, but it may be in the budget book now. And if so, I'll send that page number to you.
Okay, thank you.
That's what makes it challenging to do the comps, right? It's always more complex than you want it to be. Okay. So now we'll get to the fun part. We have,
Thank you for doing this.
of course, we've taken a very close look, and I want to commend Sean. I want to commend Scott Olson, who is our manager of facilities, and who's done a great job with this too. They've really scrubbed through prior years' funding based on our conversation last time. We've been doing this work throughout the year, but really accelerated that a bit to see, are there some projects that we can turn that funding back for as a first way to help. The second then was to look at what we're requesting in FY26. And if there's some funding in the past,
Right.
we can reduce or eliminate the funding in this request, right? And carry that forward, and we'll go through that, and then the total. So the total gets us, and I want to be completely clear or upfront with it, gets us to the 932, but that does follow the recommendation or the suggestion, at least, that we look at a special appropriation for the scoreboard. So, because actually, having spoken with Jay, we both feel that is the better pathway for the scoreboard than through the budget, because if we can get through that by early May, we're guaranteed to have it up and ready to go for the fall. If we wait till July, it's unlikely, according to the company. So I do think a special appropriation, if the Board of Finance still thinks that's acceptable, we'll present and go through the numbers and look at it that way. So to go through these a step at a time, And these are in your budget book also on page 105, but we pulled this out just to make it as clear as possible. We're looking at reducing the request in FY '26 for masonry by the $250,000. We have some funds that's still in the budget from past years to do this work. And it's really, we say masonry, it's really the repointing of the brick buildings. It's very labor intensive work that's important to just keep up with. So it'll come back, but we feel like we've got enough in the previous years to run through for the time being. We also have previous funding in painting a bit. So we're looking to bring that number down by $80,000 in this year's budget request.
And also move it to the individual schools.
Right, right. And really focusing at the high school and Saks and a couple of things here and there. In ceiling tiles, we had $250,000 for Saks to begin a ceiling tile replacement. And we would suggest taking that down by $100,000. So that's ceiling tiles over at the middle school. It's a long-term project. And when you look at the ceilings in schools and the tiles are pretty old and they start to show it. And again, there's advancements there. The engineering general at 71,819, that's previous money that was approved that we're turning back that we don't need to spend. So that's a reduction from FY '23. And then the same with the energy conservation, the 150,000. You know, we were on such a roll with energy conservation and looking at new ideas. And part of this was about continuing to explore the CHP, which we've said, you know, let's pump the brakes on this a little bit and keep doing what we're doing over at the middle school and make a decision after we have some years under our belt. So we want to turn that back. The East Walking Trail at $30,000. The PTC has agreed that they're going to do some fundraising for that and they should be able to fund that. So the East PTC will step up for us. Now I have a meeting with them Monday morning. And if this changes, I'll let you know. But I'm very confident. They're incredibly generous. And they're comfortable doing that. So I will talk with them. The replacement of the scoreboard over at Dunning, as I just mentioned, I think I would like to accelerate that if possible, because having that in place by the fall is mission critical for our field use.
Let me just stop you on that. I'm just looking at Ian. We would take it out of this budget and then just do this, and we could do it in April. We could do a special appropriation in April if we want to do that. I'd like to know kind of how people feel about it now, because once we pull it out, we really can't put it back in.
You can do an appropriation.
This was Chris's idea. I think it was a good one. And to point, not to point at you, unless everybody hates it, then it's totally your idea. But the point being the timing, we couldn't make the timing work.
Correct.
And I'm okay. That's a good catch. Okay, well, if we do this, we're launching the
We
rocket.
could approve it
Okay.
next week.
Well, we could
At the
approve
same-
it Thursday.
At the same time that we
Approve the budget, we could do that
approve
action. Can we do a special
appropriation?
appropriate? We just have to notice it, right, Tucker?
You want to do an appropriation or an authorization?
Well, they need the appropriation. I think they want to get going on it in the summer.
Do we want to bond this?
That's what I mean, if they don't bond it or-
Oh, bond it.
Choose bond
Yeah,
it.
Totally.
They're not gonna do authorization for next week, and then we need an.
When do you need the authorization?
On the author-
When?
I could get that for.
Could you get that? We can give that to you Tuesday or Thursday next week. If you're okay with that, then that answers that before we vote on this budget on Thursday. I like that. Okay, that makes it a lock. That makes it a closed loop. We'll see if people support it still, but
Right.
at least that's a process that we can button down and get done.
Special appropriation will be in this fiscal year.
Yes,
One we're currently in,
well, I'm looking at Ann. It's going to be bonded.
It's gonna be bond.
but it'll be an expense for the current year that we're in. It's not next
It's not
year.
gonna have any effect on spend for or budgetary.
Yeah, it's bonded. It'll just be an authorization and then they,
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah.
It just goes on our debt for this
Yeah.
year, which,
As open debt.
okay, that's okay.
since we've had a few conversations today about our debt. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, okay,
yeah, okay.
okay. We have a plan.
So
That's
that
great.
means the town council would vote on the special appropriation in April.
No. They just have to vote on the authorization. It's not an appropriation.
bonding
We're not- we're not-
authorization.
They don't have to vote on the special.
If it's part of the bonding authorization, it would have to be approved by them, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, let us know who to talk to and we'll be there. That's great. And we'll touch base.
So
on
they
it.
should come back on Thursday or Tuesday. and tell us
Well, they'll
what-
be here Tuesday for the meeting and then you'll be here Thursday for the vote and we'll take care of it.
So we ought to get the details on this.
I just want to make sure whatever we have to notice, we get noticed in time.
Yeah, we definitely can get it in front. The difference is between what you have it on the town council, we just have to do the notification.
Okay, all right. Well, assume that's the plan. Just let's work out the details and then we can discuss it Tuesday if we have to change anything. Okay.
Thank you. And the final thing on the sheet, as you'll see, is the Saks Courtyard resurfacing. And we're looking at taking that down by $50,000. It was a $150,000 request, take it down by 50. With $100,000, we believe we can do the design and get that what we believe it should be for our kids. So all, you know, with all of it together, the prior plus the reduction of the request. So the prior was the 221,819, 711 reduction of the request brings us to a total of 932,819
Very good.
in capital.
Yeah, that's good. No, that's good. Very good.
In terms of the full year 26 request, originally 5,000,001. It's back out 711. It's 4.290. So 14% reduction.
Thank you for that. Josh, you've got all this? in the running tab?
I'll sit with them. I'll give them all the details.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, the engineering energy conservation, what exactly does that entail? What are you cutting out there?
Sure. That was funding from FY23 that really was focused on expanding the CHP program. We've got that combined heat and power over at Saks. And looking at other opportunities to continue to expand in energy conservation. The CHP has been a bit challenging, so we want to slow that down. We may look at it again in the future, but we'd like to get a few more years under our belt using that technology first to make that decision. We've been in good shape with our solar and with other work that we've been doing. So we're not shelving anything else. We are holding off on the CHP.
You're saying it's challenging because you're just not getting the payback that you expected?
That's a part of it. Yeah. You know, the way CHP works, right? It's combined heat and power. It burns natural gas to generate the electricity. It heats water that can go through the system and warm the building. Ideally, it's most effective if you have a swimming pool and you're using the water year round to heat the pool and do those things, which we don't have. But it is effective. It helps, and it helps to offset some of the cost. But mechanically, it's been a bit challenging, and the environment around credits and tax credits for towns to be able to sell or give to the vendor who's doing the support, that landscape has changed a little bit. So it's something we're still interested in doing what we can do on the energy side, and to be good stewards and conserve and to try to save. But we want to make sure the payback horizon makes it a worthwhile investment for us.
And we're seeing the exact same thing on the town side. I mean, we're in the middle of working through it. It is not exactly as it was originally proposed.
Any other unspent money you are using? It's encumbered. Where are we on any of the other dollars? Or is this pretty much take care of?
Yeah, we will continue to spend it down. In fact, in painting, we just received bills of approximately $100,000. Different painting jobs, and we've got about 8 or 9 bills.
Okay.
Adds up to about 100,000. So that'll eat into the old painting. But
Then on the operational side, which is challenging, as you know, we spoke with Joe. He ran the numbers for us to look at our claims for last month. And it's not bad news. So no bad news is sort of good news with insurance, but it was a little bit worse than where we were a month ago, 2 months ago. So we're keeping a close eye on it. We're pretty comfortable staying where we are right now, but we'll continue to look at it. And if it looks like, as we get closer, we cut off months of trend. So as that happens, then as long as we stay pretty consistent, then the projections will sort of trend down a little bit with that, because it's one less month that you're pushing out. And there's always increase month by month the percentage increase you look at. Good news, though, the stop loss, we've had a 15% stop loss built into this, and he's taken a close look, talked to some people, and we believe that we can bring that stop loss number down to about 5% instead of the 15, and that winds up being about $150,000 there. And he's going to continue. We talked, and he was going to reach out to Larry, who's the town's consultant, and really talk about what's the market looking like, and can we even go further? Because so far, at least, we're trending okay with our high dollar claimants, especially those that hit the number. We did have 2 that hit the $300,000 just in this last month. So I am also optimistic, hopefully, that when we get the reimbursement from the stop loss, it'll help to offset next month's claims, and that number will look a little bit better for our projection too. As you know, each month that we receive the new claims for it rolls off a past month from a year ago. And we use a 12-month look back to generate our projections. So if that helps in the February look back and it's less than what February was a year ago, then that all is to the good. And that's the hope. But there's some savings there for the stop loss, given where we are. And we're going to continue to monitor the insurance overall number. And that as we get closer, as we get through April and before May, we can have a more finalized number that we can share with you prior to the final. Of course, if there's savings available there, we always take it. We also did learn of one more retirement. So we're up to 4 retirements for that turnover piece. And we're looking across at the staff across the board, certified and non-certified, and making some hard decisions about some potential reductions through attrition. So if somebody retires or leaves who's not not in the teaching position, but doing some other work, are there ways that that role can be incorporated elsewhere without a full replacement? So we're looking at through attrition, trying to drive some savings there too.
So just to remind everybody, we had asked for about $550,000 of operating reduction, about half of 1%. And if I hear what you're saying, you've got a couple of ideas, some more harder than others. I don't think I'm hearing that you're committing to $550,000 today.
I'm climbing a ladder.
What we did last year, if you remember, was Brian was climbing the ladder. He was climbing the ladder. And we asked to have it nailed down by May. And I think you did.
We did.
I think you did, right?
Mhm.
Well, the town council did it.
No, no, it was no.
Other savings.
So you're climbing the ladder. You're at maybe 300, if I'm hearing what you're saying, or 250.
Yeah, I think we're at 250.
What did you originally budget in turnover? How many?
We're at 245 is what we
But I
came
mean,
in
how
with.
many were you accounting for with that 245?
But it's about 7 or 8. That's right. But we also, when there's the turnover savings around retirements that we think about, but there's also other folks that might leave after 5 or 7 or 10 years, and some other smaller opportunities, but can be more frequent. Like for instance, how many new teachers did we onboard this year?
51.
We onboarded 51 new teachers this year. And I think maybe were there 8 retirements or 10 retirements or something? So, there's the retirements are what we think of most because that's somebody at the top and we know where they are. And then we bring in somebody, with 5 years or less experience, typically, depending on the area. So we can estimate that delta. And we have it about 36,000 per retiree, give or take, seems to be about where it runs. It might be a little different now. But then we have others that sort of the churn that happens. And what we'll look to do, and I can be more specific with a number, when we talk, some of the attrition. So if we've got some folks leaving and we wind up figuring out a way without replacing, then those are some real dollars that can add up.
Well, what would be the operating number you would commit to right now? Reduction. Because that would be the number we would vote on.
So I think
I'd love an answer tonight. We don't have to have it tonight. If you want to noodle on it, we don't care. We really need it Thursday or Tuesday would be. You'll be.
Let me run a few scenarios
Okay.
and then I'll get.
Give us the number
directly.
you can commit to. The ladder's still up.
Understood.
I think
It's
so.
always about your managing risk, right?
Yeah,
So as the higher
well,
we go
and
with
you're-
turnover savings, the more risk we introduce. But and there's also the piece, and I do think it helps. I'm glad the question was asked about what gets turned back, right? So
Yeah.
really, if you look at the average of what we've turned back through the years,
Exactly.
it almost hits exactly that.
That's why
number.
we're not being jerks tonight, because you do it.
You wouldn't be anyway,
Oh,
but
I
I thought
know.
it might help.
Love it. But no, but seriously, that track record, and I brought it up on the Moody's call. Because there was a little bit of the relationship with the Board of Ed. I said, well, they have, I said almost every year, I wish I'd known it was 9 out of 10, but I said almost every year they have returned something because they recognize they have a multivariable equation with a lot of moving pieces. It's not 109 million, it's $100 million things, right? Kind of thing. And so they do the best they can. They're really transparent about it. And we give a lot of degrees of freedom, and they have come back every time and said, okay, you know what? We did overestimate. We did the right thing. Here's 500,000, $2 million.
That's right.
And so I assume that'll, again, we expect that would be the case. So let's just figure out what that number is Tuesday, so we can put it in our numbers. And then we'll finish it up at the, in May, when you have a few more facts, a few more things nailed down. Is that fair?
That's very fair.
That's great.
Thank you.
Anything else for Board of Ed? Team? Bob, anything?
Nope, I thought the insurance presentation was fantastic. I like that. And I agree that we shouldn't be on the state plan because first of all, the employees probably wouldn't like to be on that plan. And once you go to fully insured from self-insured, it's probably impossible to go back. So I commend the team for doing that analysis, and I look forward to the June report.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you all very much. Oh, go ahead.
Just one clarification. So we need the number, the operating budget number to vote on Thursday,
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
You said something about going back, revisiting in May, but we can't do
Because
anything.
the mill rate, you could,
Well, the mill rate is just, it falls out from the budget. So we have, the budget we approve on Thursday
The only
is the
thing-
budget that goes to the town council.
Yes, yeah, but when, if I'm not mistaken, in prior years, in May, the insurance numbers are a lot more
Oh, the
certain.
insurance numbers.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
That's what I'm talking about, insurance. Yeah, the insurance numbers are just a lot more certain than they
No,
are
no,
today.
no,
We
now I
know
understand.
there's a
I
timing
thought I
problem.
said, when you were talking about operating budget.
yeah, I
thought-
know, I thought you were talking about getting.
I was referring to the insurance, so I think
Okay,
so was
all
Brian.
right. So
Yeah,
yes, I
yeah.
agree on the insurance.
We,
number.
I always
The
think of
operating
them as
budget,
one.
we need your number for next week. 'cause
Yes, sir.
That
That's
goes in,
exactly
it
right.
becomes a hard number,
That's it.
and then we send it to the other guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All
Great to see
right,
you.
thank you. As always, great job. So since this all is on topic 2, I'm going to push the capital review to the bottom because we still need to hear everybody else's conversations, and then we'll do that review of capital, okay? Make sense? All right. And Brian, I know Josh, who apparently just walked out, is keeping track of all this. So general government. Are you someone presenting that? You got that?
Josh is doing.
Josh is?
doing.
Josh. You got nervous, got stage fright and walked out? Okay. Give Josh a minute.
Well, the Waverly Park folks are going to talk to us, right?
That's on Thursday. right? Oh, it is Thursday. What am I doing? Oh my God. This week is just. You have a second.
I will
call.
say something.
You have a second call.
We may have.
Oh, no. When did you do that? When did they leave? But we're not voting on anything.
done that.
Not for tonight.
What is going on? Okay, this is.
Now, Josh, weren't you going to do the capital review? Weren't you?
We can go without any capital projects next year.
Can we quote?
all right.
I know, Anne would be thrilled. Anne would be thrilled.
Okay, general government.
Okay, done.
No, I said, we'll do the bonded and tax supported conversation and analysis at the end, not now. Okay, we'll do general government now. Okay? Because we need Tiger's input and so forth. No.
I-
All right. Tucker, are you doing Waveney Park?
Conservancy?
Oh, are they on or
They were told.
Oh, okay.
8:45? No,
Oh,
They were scheduled.
8:45? Which meeting do they think they were going to?
it's in the back of the budget book.
All right. Yeah, we're nowhere near going to be an hour from now for that.
All right, so general government. So general government covers quite a few departments, including the ones you see here. Overall, year over year, general government is seeing about a 2.75 increase over last year's budget. And so I will run through each department and kind of some of the highlights for each of them. And if you have any questions, I'll pause in between them. And we start with the first selectman's budget. So the first selectman sees an increase of 11.55% over last year. So,
I got to take somebody in.
so the main driver of that obviously is
Story.
the salary is full-time. There's two pieces to it. The first selectman's budget had the HR generalist position that was a 50 split with HR. That split has been kind of readjusted or adjusted to be 25 in this budget and 75 in HR, just based on how that kind of work takes place. And the grant writer position was previously in finance, and now that's been moved to the first selectman's budget. So that kind of makes up that 15% jump in full-time salaries. Along with that, there's a reduction in the part-time salaries by $3,500, kind of reducing the role of the project coordinator position, and also a reduction of $6,000 in the economic development line due to a number of initiatives being completed in FY25. So the previous level of funding is no longer needed. Any questions on the first selectman's budget?
Okay, so the entire change is due to these moving around of
Yeah.
parts of other
Right.
departments.
So like the grant writer was in finance. Now it's in my budget,
100%?
100%.
So
Right,
it's going to be out of your budget.
out of her budget.
Okay, and then there was another part-time,
So
You
actually, I
spent an
lost
HR
part
person?
of, our, what is Mimi's? She's an HR coordinator, HR generalist. So she really works more in HR. So I lost 0.25 of an HR generalist and human resources.
From first selectman
To HR.
so
So this budget would be down about 0.5%, 1/4%.
Then there are no
without-
raises for you guys.
okay, so I'm just trying to see, the value of the moving out person was what, is 11,000? And the moving in person was 81, is that it?
About that. Yeah, because the
in the
full
back.
grant went in. It's about that.
The full grant
Yeah.
writer, yeah.
Yeah, it's about that.
Okay. Just trying to see, the pieces underneath the 70.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to finance. Finance sees a drop by 2.67%. The highlights are salaries full-time is going up 2%, removal of the grant writer position, and an addition of a purchasing agent position, and Ann can kind of speak to that.
Looking to add a purchasing agent, but also a risk manager, a dedicated risk manager, because there's another position, part-time position that we have that's actually coming out that handled all our risk side of it. But we're looking to centralize our purchasing process and generate and then bring all the risk factor between our general lap insurance plus also insurance in terms of our vendors, our COIs, things that make sure we all have it in one place. It's in everybody's department right now. On top of it, we're also integrating a new module called contracts, which all our contracts now will go into this module that will track everything. We track it on Excel. This will get everything in the same place from an expenditure and a rent. So if we have rental contracts, they'll live in perpetuity after us. So someone will remember that we signed a contract 10 years ago and it's still in effect. So we're trying to centralize that. And this position would take over that process.
Aside from that, the part-time salary sees a decrease of about 34%. That's the removal of the associate of risk management and also project coordinator positions. The professional services audit is being reduced by 13,000 just to reflect previous actuals and kind of the fluctuations due to timing, the crossing over fiscal years. Banking and transaction fees were also dropping by 6,800. We're really making an effort to kind of push banking and transaction fees to the departments that see the revenue of those fees, just so we get kind of a more inclusive view of what those revenues cost us.
Who do we use for the audit?
I'm drawing a blank.
PKF.
PKF, thank you.
Yeah.
PK, sorry, there's so many auditors going around right now because we're doing an internal one as well. It's PKF as ever external.
How long have we had them?
Do them last year, so we'll have them for about 3 years. Yeah, they change partners.
We went out to bid
Yeah.
on both our internal and external audit services last year. There are very few external auditors for municipal government.
Yeah. We were lucky we got 2 bids. Most towns were just getting their encumbrance, some were getting none. So we were actually very lucky we got 2.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions on finance? On to the tax assessor's office and department. So tax assessor and tax collector, you kind of have to view in this budget as just like one solid unit. The retiring of our current tax collector after 17 years, I believe, actually retiring tomorrow. There's a merging of the tax assessor and tax collector position. So you'll see an increase in the tax assessor's office. The salaries full-time is being increased by 9.5%. Salaries part-time were increasing about 7,000. That's to support a new position that's kind of joint between the 2 departments to support this new joining of departments. And along with that, there's an increase in service contracts of 5,600, and that's just reflecting estimated costs for their QDS software. FY24, the actuals were 3,500, so this is really about $1,200 year over year from that. Any questions on this?
I think you should mention the savings. I think we can add it up, the savings from merging those roles, because you're adding some part-time. but
Yes,
you still
correct.
have savings.
We're gonna have about 80,000,
There you go.
including benefits, because you're going down that position.
Right.
About 80,000, even with adding the 2 thank you for both offices with the part-time help.
Yeah, on a combined basis, you're down $45,000. Why wouldn't you merge the 2 departments?
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, the departments aren't technically merged.
They'll still be separate, but now we have a director of assessment and taxation.
So in years going forward, can we have a single department here budget?
I think from, we could put it under the same budget. Yeah, we could actually. I'm just thinking in terms of positions, they still have to be kept separate from a functioning standpoint, but from a budget, we could.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is in the future, you might have 2 different people.
We could, and if we went back to a collector assessor, down the road, you go back where you actually split the job back up again, you would need 2 departments again.
It's a skills-based position, so, right now, we're fortunate, we have an individual who
Can
could
do
do
both.
both jobs. We might not be able to find that person, when this person retires.
Right.
We'll see what the market is like.
Okay, so for that reason, you've got to keep 2 departments.
Yeah.
It'd be better, yeah.
Okay.
There are a lot of towns that are starting to do this. There are a lot of assessors that are taking the tax collector courses in the state. So there's a lot of towns going down that path.
So on to the other side, the tax collector's department sees a 31.2% drop in their year-over-year budget. And kind of like we talked about, full-time salary is down 41%. Salaries part-time is up 4,600 to support that intermediate position, the part-timer. And their service contracts is also up about $1,000 for their QDS cloud software. Is on either of these 2? Otherwise, we'll move on to legal. Legal, we have a 6.25% increase from 400,000 to 425,000. At 400,000 this year, we're really I think, running on the money with this, running on budget. And next year, we're going to be having the police union and fire union contract negotiations upcoming. So this little bump is to kind of support those negotiations.
Josh, just on that, the two things jumped off the page in this section. One is that this whole budget is up less than 0.5%
Which
when you
budget?
take out the whole budget, when you take out the IT contract. So we want to talk about that. That's driving the whole
Yes,
thing.
that's the biggest thing.
The rest of this is basically flat, which is really
Pretty-
impressive. But why do you say we're going to spend 400? Where's that coming from? We spent 80.
For legal fees?
Mhm.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm looking at
We're-
year-to-date
we're-
through December.
No, we're way above that.
No, we're way
now.
above it.
Okay.
At the
We're
time,
way
there's
above
more
that.
Okay,
bills. and
okay,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
well,
I mean,
I
I'm
can only
proud of
judge-
my lack
I
of
can only-
legal expenses.
I can
but
only
I'm
judge what I
not
see.
that
But
good.
the
I see
prior-
81.
Not
The
that
prior
good.
year was only 258, so why did you go from 258 to 400? All that was.
No, it
this year.
wasn't 258. You have to look at the bottom number, the total number of all of it.
Oh, I see. So this 400 is going to be exploded into different lines.
It does, yeah, correct.
We budget one number, but it's paid out of different lines.
I see.
So
So
it was
what we're
432
comparing is
last year.
425 to
There
432.
you go.
All right, so you're down.
Okay.
On to the HR department. So HR sees an increase of 9.1%. That's really mainly due to the restructuring of the HR generalist position out of the first selectman's budget. With that filtered out, this department would see a 1.8% increase year over year. So it's pretty flat. There's a drop of 2,500 in their payroll processing through ADP, just reflecting the new contract that's in effect. State drug and alcohol testing is down 2,000, just bringing it in line with the past actuals. And training is up 2,000. Training in the HR department supports, various other departments that may not have a training line in their budget. So if they kind of need some class or anything really, they'll go to HR and.
Josh, is ADP 2 or 2.5?
Two. Look at two. Okay, of course you got it. Yeah, thank you.
500 bucks?
On to IT. Okay, so IT sees an increase of 21.6% year over year. And that's really due to just one line, and that's the service contracts line. And there's a kind of a few factors that go into that. And myself and pretty much all of the IT department took a really close look at this number to make sure that we were, zero-based budgeting every single contract that they were looking at. The biggest jump of that 115,000 is the inclusion of 65,000 for Darktrace that was previously in the capital budget. And so now that the initial capital project took place, the setup and so on, that has to get moved into the operating side of things. So that's getting brought in. In addition to that, a couple projects that were, I guess the initial contracts had started, they had started as 3-year initial contracts. And so those contracts, we happen to have a few expire this coming year. And so now we need to go on a year-to-year contract with those. That includes Rubrik and Bitdefender, which is another about $30,000 right there. In addition to that, there's some Microsoft servicing fees with virtual desktop environments for $18,000, and OpenGov, our beloved permitting software, is increasing $5,000 over last year. So we did a really close look on every single one of those contracts and got to what we thought.
Just for the Board of Finance members and some of the new members, we do a executive session on IT and our cyber protections. We don't do that in an open meeting for obvious reasons. We will do that. Well, I would say let's do it in the April meeting. Can we schedule that? To just do a deep dive and get an understanding of where we are and what's happening and all the rest of it. We always want to make sure we've got the investments we need to do the job that we have, but it's not the sort of thing we do in a public meeting.
Yeah, I know. Some.
And also within the IT department, there's it's not really an increase, it's an addition of a training line for $3,000, and it's to support a new online training platform that'll work for the entire department and have just an array of classes and courses that they can take. If one of these, if one of the 4 IT employees wants to take a class or course individually, it could cost over $1,000, $2,000. So this kind of is a consolidated way for them to all stay up on their training in kind of like one easy platform. I think some of this will also be shared with an employee at the police department who works closely with our IT department and handles some of the IT over at the PD. Any questions on IT? Okay. On to the town clerk's department. So bundling tax collector and tax assessor, similar bundling town clerk and registrar of voters. A lot of the story is going to be around the presidential election was last year, and this year it's not a presidential election. You'll see salaries part-time and part-time elections. There's a reduction of 7,000 and 2,000 respectively. Outside service contracts, that's their price of their COT software is expected to increase by 2,000. That's in the contract service line. Postage and advertising will be dropping 2,500 and 2,000 because of the presidential election last year again. And ballots is a new a GL account that we're creating to kind of consolidate where we buy ballots out of. We used to buy mail-in ballots or in-person ballots from different places. So you'll see a drop in office supplies in the town clerk's budget by 2,000 and a drop in the registrar's budget by 11,000 in office supplies. And this is increasing by 13,000. So it's really a net zero effect. Any questions in this budget?
Well, there's no question, I guess, for now, although I guess it's sort of shocking that we're talking about $520,000 when only 3 years ago it was $420,000. It was $100,000 more. I mean, we have no more ballots.
They split the districts. So when it went from, I think, what, 3 to 6?
Same people vote. Come on. I'm
But
just,
you have to staff.
You have to staff them. It's
staff
staffing
all those
costs went
voting
up. That's what the
locations
problem is.
And early voting.
And early voting is
Yeah.
very expensive.
Yeah, so we had 2 weeks of 7 days
Yeah.
of overtime people.
but for this election, this year?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
I'm talking about
And
this
next
year.
year,
Well,
there's
this year
early
you will
voting
have-
permanently.
This year, you
Forever.
will still have 2 weeks for the municipal elections.
Yes, it's crazy.
By state
It's another
statute,
unfunded mandate by the federal government, by the state
by the
government.
state government. Yeah, it's very expensive.
It's super, I mean, I couldn't believe, there were people here on Saturdays and Sundays for 2
Yeah.
weeks solid,
That's true. I
all
voted
day
early.
long.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you have to pay them and,
Yeah.
3 people might come in, but that's the law.
And then we also have to staff East School now. That was never a voting
Yeah.
district before. And so there's just a lot more locations to staff and pay people to do it. So.
Yeah.
And feed them.
And this is not going away.
No.
The expense of running elections is it's just changed and will stay changed for foreseeable future.
I'm glad I brought it up.
Yeah, so we have to just live with it.
So on to the Registrar of Voters Department. The ROV sees a reduction by 15.3%. A lot of the same story kind of applies here. Part-time salaries office is reduced to by 10,000, and PT elections is increased by 2,000. Their elections personnel is reduced by 13,000, and these are really just due to last year being presidential, but still we kind of have to maintain that new norm of expectations behind early voting and so
Right,
on.
but you don't have primaries, you don't have,
You could have a primary still.
Mhm.
You could
you
still.
could,
Yeah.
technically, yes.
Yeah.
Coming out of one of the caucuses.
Yeah.
That's possible.
There's also an increase in the meals and events line, which the poll workers need to be fed, so that comes out of there. And the supplies office line, that's where ballots were paid out of by them. And like I said, that had been brought over to the town clerk's department. Any questions on the registrar?
So wait, I'm looking at this. You have it up. Wait, am I not looking straight across? So I
What
have
line are you thinking?
meals and events.
Meals and events.
Up
Year over year.
25,
But it was 4,500. Now it's 2,500.
from the adopted,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, I always do this. Okay. Okay, got it.
They
Got it.
budgeted
I do that.
in
Yep.
another line
Yep.
for them. So.
Yep.
All right. On to the building department. The building department sees a decrease of 1.68%. Really, in building and P and Z and health, and the main story is how great OpenGov has been for the employees and also for the people seeking permits, how much it's kind of expedited the process and also streamlined internal processes. And kind of as a part of that, salaries part-time is being brought down 36,000 to kind of reevaluate some of these part-time positions as these processes get streamlined. Also, a lot of this is now paperless or less paper, so office supplies are coming down by 1,000 to kind of reflect those actuals. Voice and data is being increased by 1,000 to support the purchase of 2 new iPads for using OpenGovs for the inspectors using OpenGov while in the field. It's kind of surprising they didn't have that right now, but this is kind of where they're looking towards, which gives them better access and better history and data and can make changes on the fly. So that's that addition. Any questions on the building department?
Well, just one question, I guess, on the adopted versus the revised versus the recommended on the salary line. This is, all of your math is off the adopted, but why did we take the revised up 19 grand salary? From 426 to.
That would likely have to do with COLA increases for non-union employees. I think there's.
Because you know how when you, yeah, they don't budget, that's kind of what we made a slight change this year.
Happened here.
To
Got
the
it.
police and.
Okay.
Employees.
It was 0 and then now you have
Yeah.
after the contra piece.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That's a good footnote to put in this, by the way, in the future. That point.
A lot of these departments
Yeah.
have that as well, for sure.
land use is the same.
Land use is the same, yeah. You'll find 1 or 2 in most of the departments where that takes place. So land use is up 2.5% year over year. This is due to professional membership is increasing $1,000. That's an increase in Westcog membership fee. Their office supplies are being brought down 1,000. Similar, they're using OpenGov, less paper, and bringing it in line with actuals there. And voice and data is actually dropping 2,100, which is kind of a 1-year correction that needed to take place due to the splitting of the building and land use department. Some of the allocations of the voice and data needed to be corrected rather.
And the full-time salary increase line is due to what? Just
Full-time salary increase line is due to, I believe, 1 employee stepping and COLA, and then 1 employee not stepping, but their COLA is within that. Yeah,
okay.
and that's really the entirety of the increase
Yeah,
there.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Any questions on land use? All right, so we're bundling a couple of these departments together now, since they're a bit smaller. So we're looking at health and security benefits, pension and OPEB, and insurance liability. So the contribution to town health benefits is at a 5% year over year increase. In working with Larry, we feel comfortable that that is really the number that we're looking at. The 401A Board of Ed contributions, that's the town side that contributes to Board of Education 401A plans. That's up 11% year over year. That's really just taking actuals from current year payrolls and adding COLAs onto that and kind of projecting that out. The wellness line is 15,500 as an addition. There is a once every other year wellness fair that takes place that was previously split with the Human Services Department. That's now being kind of pulled all into here. Town pension contribution is up to almost 275,000 from last year due to the recent report from Hooker and Holcomb. Workers' comp is down by 7.5%, 7.6%, bringing it down to reflect recent positive claim experience and while we're being a fully insured plan. And our insurance blanket coverage is up projected 3% over last year. Any questions on these 3 departments?
The offset in the wellness fair was in the
But Human
health
Services had a
department.
small portion of it.
I mean,
So-
you say it came out of their budget and into this one.
Yeah, it didn't fully have a home in either one. So we looked at how much those costs at those fairs were and who was paying them. And for us, it's difficult to cross over departments with one department head. So we said this would be the most appropriate place to keep it in one place in this area.
All right.
Can you remind me which employees are still on pensions?
Police, fire,
And then anyone that was hired before 2011. I think
Both
it's
plans, everyone else.
2011, so town hall, anybody hired before 2011 and, yeah, just police and fire.
And
Yeah.
police and fire will continue to receive pensions, or is that?
Yeah, if we can get it in negotiations, but
that's the plan right now.
All right, on to the parking department. Parking has the least number of changes across all of their lines. That sees a 1.6% increase year over year, which is $6,300. The only thing of note is a decrease in their gas and oil by $1,000, just bringing it in line with what their past year actuals were. Any questions on parking? Okay. Again, kind of a bundle of these. This is covering debt service, a new department called town commissions, contingencies, and interfund transfers. So debt service, we're obviously going out to bond next Tuesday. So we'll have some updated numbers on this, but we're expected to keep it as relatively flat as possible. During that time, we'll also have a bond premium number that we'll be bringing in as revenue. That's not listed in this budget currently. The drop in the debt service is due to the Board of Ed technology lease, and that's dropping by 18.6%. It was determined that it's just a better practice for our situation to bond for that lease. I guess it's not a lease, to bond for that technology to get them that access to that money faster so they can spend it or allocate it in time for the school year to start. And it's just going to be a better rate for us anyway. So that line will come down slowly over time as well. Town commissions. So this is kind of our way of consolidating different commission asks within one department. This includes the Utilities Commission, which is requesting $27,250 for a technology assessment for the town network modeling, and the workstation hardware software to kind of cover those needs. There is also the Conservation Commission's ask for $11,000 built into there. And there is one ask that is not currently in your budget that is from the Affordable Housing Commission for $30,000. And that's to support a feasibility assessment study for potential affordable housing sites. The salary contingency line is at $341,000. Right now within there is the non-union COLA, part of the fire steps and COLA, part of the police steps and COLA, and 261 budgeted days as opposed to the 260 typical budgeted days for salary. So we did move some projection for the fire and police into their departments, but this kind of houses some of the other. Volunteer tax maybe.
Back to the, so the Affordable Housing Committee, because I'm on that committee, it's so it's the 30,000 ask for that. Is that, so you're saying that's not in this budget, right?
That is not in the budget you have, but this would be a new addition to it as an ask.
Came in after.
Yes. Okay, gotcha.
Down to the volunteer tax abatement, that's at 80,000. We're kind of just seeing increases in that, and we're just bringing that number in line with what we expect the actuals to be. And let's just see, I think I kind of skipped over, contingency is at 350,000, and the operating transfer, which is really the tech support to capital line, is 1.3 million. Right now, 1.73 million, sorry. Right now we're kind of analyzing ways to offset that number by utilizing either tax supported capital fund balances, extra duty funds, bundling for bonding, or bond premium funds. I think we have a couple of those. A lot of departments have been really good at closing down some of their projects, and they kind of keep closing down those projects until the 11th hour. We try to utilize some of those funds to offset that. So I'm sure we'll have a number for you soon in terms of how we want to offset. those
Soon, like
expenses.
in 45 minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's.
Okay,
that's-
good.
That's good, yeah. We can do that.
So to remind everybody, used or budgeted 384 last year. The request is 1,000,007, and this is where we said, that's just really a lot. Let's target 500. Was obviously Tuesday's conversation. So we have some homework that we've done, and right?
Sure. Do you want to go over that now or
Nope.
at the end? Cool.
Nope, I think we'll come back to it because we've got, other presentations to make, and that's gonna take a little while.
Onto the revenue side of things, there are a couple of revenues on the general government side. Starting with the finance department, that is seeing a reduction of 4.62%. The main driver on that, the interest on investment line, is down 200,000. And I don't know if Andrew Brooks is online. Oh, it's not. But this was anticipated market conditions in the coming year, averaging three forecasting methodologies by our treasurer. Another thing with the asterisk that is not currently in the budget you have, we normally, before we have the actual numbers from the governor's biennial budget, we put placeholders for these grant numbers. We just keep them flat. So the numbers that are asterisked are the updated numbers for that, and it's a pretty much flat year over year. There's kind of a shifting of which line and where they go, but for the most part, there's really no change overall as a net.
So on the interest on investments, you're saying here that year to date, the year as of December, we're 1,000,002. So that's half the year.
Correct.
So where do we think we're gonna come out full year,
That's a great.
current fiscal year?
I mean, if the rates stay the same, we'll definitely hit over our mark, the budget, I think.
Over the 2 million?
Yeah, if the rates, because we just put out, not just, the beginning of February, I gave the treasurer another 10 plus million, $20 million to go out. That will stay out until probably May, and then we'll bring that back.
Oh, that's pretty locked in.
And then actually, when we do the bonding, we'll be repaying the general fund.
Right.
Which means that's another, it can only go out for about 2 months, but it's probably another 10 million that I can put out for another 2 months to pick up.
So do you double your December number, or do you come in?
Sorry?
Do you think you're gonna have well over $2 million? Or a little over 2 million?
I didn't ask him to ask this question.
If they stay the same the way they are, I believe we'll probably be maybe 200,000 over, I'm thinking, just looking at, because I was looking at what the monthly rates were before I pulled back the 20,000 to now, what happened in January, because we pulled it back then. We were running at about, it was about 150 to 200 a month. So with another, I don't know, I don't think February's in here. So February through June still to earn.
Going with this is I'm wondering if the 1,000,008
Too conservative?
is a reasonable number to put in here.
It really, I would argue, almost doesn't matter now, because when we vote on this, when it comes down to the drawdown and the mill rate, we'll have a better answer to your question. That's why I'm not gonna worry about it. He's picking a number, and it's a fair number to be
You heard
conservative. but-
Russell, they're predicting a rate cut. Now,
Yeah,
Bloomberg,
one.
yes, but
quarter
I'm just
point.
saying, I mean,
We can play those games.
I mean, who knows?
We'll know, in May, we'll know,
mean,
when we say the drawdown will be more or
Right.
less, we'll have a little bit of better intelligence on what our surplus will be.
Yeah.
And what it might be for next
And what
year.
that might be, exactly.
All right, very good.
I'll take the over on 2.2.
Pressure now, pressure.
The only other increase here really is the rental of property finance. We're closing the property rental fund and bringing that into finances revenue. On to the tax collector and assessors. These numbers for the tax assessor, the 28,000, is really just dictated by the grants that we get from the state. And tax collector is really just a plug number that we get as a offset of these expenditures. Not offset, but that's what makes it work. On to the town clerk.
But before you go
Sorry,
there,
yep.
where's the tax sale?
No.
Oh,
It won't show up in,
it's something that'll happen in the 25 number,
forecasted, yes.
but it's not, you don't have it in here at all.
We won't know until April 22nd. Yeah. That's the day of the closing when the auction happens.
And
know,
then
it's-
there's 6 months after that that they
If
have.
you can appeal it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But we should get the tax money in.
right.
The tax money will be in regardless.
Again,
By the 22nd.
it's a drawdown mill rate conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't have it in here at all, not footnote, nothing. Good. All right, fine. Good. Found money.
$1 million, right?
It's 2 million because unless it's appealed. Those that are appealed go 6 months. That's next year. That's not this year.
It's actually not the appealing of the taxes. The taxes are due. It's the appealing of
The sale.
the sale.
Yeah, no, I
So
get
we'll
it.
get the taxes no matter what.
No, but if they appeal the sale, the deal's not done.
No, they
You won't
won't
get-
pay.
You won't get the
They
transaction done.
won't
That's
pay.
my
They have
point.
6 months to pay it from
Yeah.
that point if they
Yeah,
appeal it.
It's a good problem to have.
We got two done.
On to the town clerk's department. Town clerk is seeing a 5.9% increase year over year. And that's really mainly due to conveyance fees up 100,000 from last year. I think we've kind of all been seeing during our our monthly financials that conveyance fees have been ticking up. And so this kind of reflects that. Other than that, these smaller changes are just bringing it in line with 24 actuals and kind of our projections for them for FY25. That's the MERS fees, vital statistics fees, and copier revenue, down 7, up 5, and down 2, respectively. Any questions on town clerk? Okay. On to building and land use. So much like conveyance fees, building permits have been seeing increases lately. So we are increasing that line by 50,000. We've really increased that line in a couple years. And zoning permits is also seeing a small tick up by 6,000. Really, OpenGov has just helped their successful collection of these fees due to the timing that people have to pay for their fees in relation to when they get the permits. You know, they have to pay out front, I think, and then get their permits. So you can't be left hanging really once the work has been performed. Any questions on either of these two? Okay. And lastly is, not quite lastly, but the parking department is seeing an increase of 4.8% on their revenue year over year. And that is due to an increase in the ticketing by 25,000, their meters by 25,000. Ticketing has, the collection rate of these tickets has really been increasing, not necessarily the number of these tickets. And meters, that's also bringing it in line with actuals. We believe that the kind of pay by phone facilitates an easier payment and renewal process, just kind of allowing people to kind of keep their timing going. And Boxcar, we're seeing a reduction by 6,000, bringing it in line with kind of the slowing of Boxcar this year. And we think that's due to just a reflection in work from home days. People are more inclined to buy a permit if they're not going to be buying Boxcar and they're going to be going into the city more days. You know, it kind of, there's like a break-even point at some point for that.
Did we change the pricing around the meters, making it more expensive on Elm Street? And then as you get away from Elm Street,
No.
cheaper and cheaper?
No, we're looking at adjustments next year, but right now, everything is the same.
On to the next two departments. Oh, sorry. Insurance liability, that had a drop by 60,000. It really shouldn't be reflected here. The workers' comp offset, that should be reflected within the department that sees the workers' comp claims, that gets offset against overtime and other salary lines that to cover those. In miscellaneous, you probably see the biggest drop here, the 2.7 million as the operating transfer in. So last year, that was made up of, I think it was 2.1 million in bond premium, 474,000 in ARPA that we brought in to offset lost revenue during COVID, and maybe 60,000 in the dog fund that we had closed out and brought that in as revenue. So right now, that's a blank number. It will be filled in on Tuesday after we've gotten the real number for bond
Yeah.
premium. And so that'll increase to whatever that number turns out to be. And that'll,
So we will have that Monday or Tuesday night.
You'll have it Tuesday night. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
close 11.
Okay, and so that matters, team, because right now that's a revenue line item of 0, which means amount raised by taxation, 6 and change, that'll be $1 million to $2 million of
Yeah.
new revenue that goes in, which will drop that amount raised by taxation. So that's a good guy.
and for capital projects, General Gov does have a couple capital projects. IT has their kind of yearly IT hardware software needs for 40,000, and their WAN network, I guess that's redundant, hardware software needs also for 30,000. And aside from that, the parking department is purchasing 9 pay machines, 8 of which are going to be on Elm Street and 1 of which on South Avenue for 91,100.
Josh, if they could look into, if it's the same vendor, combining the top, the 40K, 30K into one line item and make it a bonded.
I'm not sure if it is the same
Don't remember
vendor. I know,
offhand if it's
I
the same
think
vendor, to be honest with
Cisco
you.
is one of them, but I
Right,
don't know.
I don't remember the other one.
The other one.
Good thing, but we're asking other departments to look at that.
Yeah.
No, makes sense to move it over.
We actually, we just took that from bonded.
Did we?
Yeah, because it dropped below,
50.
but in
Right,
the
it was-
individuals,
right,
it
that's
dropped
true.
below.
It
So then we
was-
just flipped it over, but
I
if we,
think it
if we
was
look at the same vendor, you're
60
right, we
and-
could put it back.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Great job. And like I said, from an operating expense point of view, it's really up 0.5% year over year when you take out that IT software change. So so really great job.
Yeah,
Basically
kept
no
it.
growth in the entire town government, general government. It's really, really impressive on $6 million. So any questions, anyone? We asked a lot. All good?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, thank you. Well, you guys will be coming back to do part 2 on capital. Okay.
PA system.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm gonna, I'll call. him.
Okay, all right.
I mean, do
Okay.
you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead and mention it. Yeah.
Okay, so today we had a vendor come in. I had met at cost, CCI phone, whatever, I don't know. I didn't understand 90% of what he was talking about, but I had Sal from our systems department sitting with me. And there's some potential really good cost savings out there, going to the cloud, getting out of Cisco, you know, there's some opportunities there. But one of the things that he talked about is that they have a PA system, security and all that kind of stuff, similar to what was being talked about from the Board of Ed at a much reduced cost. So he's like already like, get me the list of what you need and I'll get you a cost. So I talked to Brian about it today at lunch, and I will bug him to, because that could be another capital budget savings. I just need him to work with this vendor because I know nothing about these tech specs.
And my bad, I should have brought it up and it slipped my mind, but we will talk about it on Tuesday. You'll
Yep,
get more
I'll
facts
remind
on that
him.
and we'll talk
Yeah.
about it on Tuesday. That's great.
$1 million.
Yeah, it was
900,000.
900,000. And so when I
900,000.
talked to this vendor, they're like, they thought they could do, now I don't know how good it is, you know, but every dollar, right? Every dollar.
May I say, that is a great photo.
We're gonna call you.
Let's see if I can get it working here. And Tucker, I might need. I may need some help at how to get this up. I have a meeting up. I'm not sure how to get the presentation.
Yeah, the presentation is open.
I did have it open earlier,
I just saw
yes. So let's see here.
Oh, it's on here, so you heard
Yeah,
that.
it's on
There's
there.
the-
So let's.
If I come back to share screen right now, go
Okay.
back onto the, go here and on the bottom.
Oh, it gives- there, so go up here, share screen.
Share screen. But, okay, so your program, it's not up yet. They have it on their tablets.
Let's see here.
Gotta open it.
Where did you go? Okay.
I don't know if you know that.
Oh, no, I didn't
It's
know.
my,
that.
it's my
See,
photo.
I thought you were, pandering.
I took this. Yeah, and it was Susie's idea. We were just walking that beautiful morning. And Susie said, take that picture. That's an amazing picture. So I take this picture and, it is a puzzle or something. I mean, it's just kind of funny how it all came out. So Susie posted it and then it got around and here it is. I can show you on my phone if you don't believe me.
I had no idea, but it's a great picture.
Isn't that funny?
Actually, it should be made into a painting. So let me.
Elm Street Books should turn it into a puzzle. Or you should turn it into a puzzle and sell
Now,
it as a revenue
don't go
source.
giving away my photo. What are you talking about?
And you have to pay him a nickel per puzzle.
I like that. That's your Christmas card. Coming in, incoming. All right, over to you, Steve. Thank you for coming up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess, first of all, thank you for letting us come and present and discuss things tonight. I want to introduce Fel Hertig, who is a member of the Waveney Park Conservancy Board. And Fel is also going to be my replacement when I step off at the end of March. So you'll be seeing a lot more of him unless you scare him away tonight, which I hope he won't do. And Michelle Crookenden, who's our executive director, is away out of town on a personal matter. And so she sends her apologies for not being able to be here tonight. I actually wanted to sort of ask you, Todd, for a little direction. I have a presentation which we've now got up, which I've given a similar one in past years that sort of discusses what we've done this year, what we anticipate doing next year, provides a little bit of background. But I also know that there's been some discussion about whether or not we should continue the allocation. And I assume that that's going to be a big part of this conversation tonight. So I don't know if you want to just dive into that or if it would be helpful to go through this presentation quickly for a little context. I don't know how much.
Maybe set the stage. We do want to see the presentation because we completely support the Waveney Park Conservancy. The question will be, how do we fund it going forward? I think what we're hearing from the bond council, and I'm turning to you, and from our bond and finance team, is that we can't put aside a lump sum of money that's not for a specific project. It's not something that we can do any longer. So I think that answers, I think, your question, or at least gives you a steer. But but that's not to say we don't support trying to find projects that could be supported and funded. We just have to do it. We can't do it in the same method that we were doing it before. I think that's the new news. Ann, did I say that right? Yeah.
Right.
That's the new news.
No, and I think, having sat in your seat, I understand that. I sort of respect the position on that. I think what I'm going to ask is I would like to have some public acknowledgement that the town has a responsibility to continue to invest in Waveney and, work on capital projects within the park. And as we go through the presentation, we can talk a little bit about what the history was, why there was a specific allocation made and why that was very helpful to us. But I recognize that needs to change, but I think we can maybe work around that by making sure that there's sort of an agreement that yes, indeed, the town recognizes that while it may not allocate every single year, it's going to make some form of commitment to allocate it a level commensurate with what we've been doing in the past, and sort of express that it recognizes it needs to continue to invest in Waveney. So,
And Fel, just so that you don't get
too nervous. There is money sitting there right now, and we talked about it, and there's actually even more than I thought
Yeah.
initially. So there's money to continue to invest this next year on, based on the list that you provided. Not all of that, but
How much is there? 900?
so there's actually 790,000
Okay.
available right now.
Actually, 6.
I did. I thought it was 6 and there was, that's what I told you. And then I got a new spreadsheet that had re-looked at it. And so it's 790.
I want to do a little reconciliation on that because
I got it from finance.
Ours is in Canadian dollars, if
I
that
know.
matters.
Okay, you got less than you think. You go with the 680.
I'm
You
not
go with the
I'm not
680.
disputing it, but
The
there may
woman
be
in
some-
charge of the numbers
Right.
gave me these
We
numbers.
can sort of, yeah, I think what we're saying is we have to change the way we're doing it. We're not changing the support. I mean, the support's there, as you can imagine. And I know from the selectmen's offices where it all comes from. And so it's important. And this committee, I'm sure, feels the same way, but we have to do it differently. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'll plunge into this and then we can discuss this a
Yeah,
little
please
bit
do.
more. But just very quickly, I think most of us are familiar with who the Waveney Park Conservancy is, but for any of you that need a refresher, we are a not-for-profit organization that was founded in 2015, really started operations or shovels in the ground beginning 2016. And our mission is to ensure Waveney thrives in perpetuity. And we do that by working with the town to, number one, advocate for the park, by helping to identify capital improvement opportunities within the park, critical maintenance projects within the park, and then working closely with the town to plan, fund, and execute those projects. And since probably 2016, we've invested about 2.1 million of private funds into the park, not to mention sort of countless volunteer hours in terms of steering that and navigating those funds. Can we do the next slide, please? So our request, and the wording's a little different than it's been in the past few years, but we respectfully ask the Board of Finance renew its commitment to fund capital improvements within Waveney, commensurate with an annualized rate of 300,000. And I recognize that this year that allocation probably won't be coming. Our goal has always been for every town dollar that's spent on a project within Waveney to match it $1 for dollar with privately raised funds. And I would also just point out that we typically use privately raised funds exclusively for the planning of projects, for survey work, for design fees, and also to do the maintenance on all of the projects that we've completed. And I think there may be room for discussion as to whether that's an appropriate way to continue to do things in the future, because some of the maintenance costs are significant. And I know in a number of other cases, the town shares in some of the soft costs and planning costs, but historically, we've funded all of those. So next, yeah, thank you. So the reason that we originally did the dedicated funding was that it amplifies investment in the park. Obviously, we're matching dollar for dollar. It provided greater certainty of funding to us and enhanced our planning. It also reduced the approval cycles and enabled us to launch projects more quickly. We'd get one lump sum from Board of Finance, and then we just had to go to the Board of Selectmen or Parks and Rec department to approve the project. So we could move things along a little bit more quickly. But probably the most important thing that the dedicated funding is that demonstrated the town's commitment to Waveney to our current and prospective donors. And in the early part of our existence, I would say that the ratio of what we were funding versus the town was 2/3 private funds to 3/4 private funds versus what the town was putting in. And we heard from a number of our donors, hey, we want to support Waveney. Waveney is a great cause. We love doing this, but we don't want to relieve the town from its responsibility to invest in the park as well. So that was why we pursued that. Talk about just very quickly 2024. I won't go through this whole list. I think that you guys can read it. But what I will say is that 2004 was mostly dedicated to smaller scale projects and more maintenance oriented projects, and also planning initiatives, with probably the most notable exception being that towards the latter part of this past calendar year, we started our woodlands management, the first phase of what we call our woodlands management project. And then that first phase has actually been completed in the last couple of months. And that envisioned or involved clearing about 15 acres of sort of forested land surrounding Genia Meadow of invasive species. And the idea behind that is that it will enable native species to reestablish themselves and will improve the health of the trees in the area and also the environment for flora and fauna. And we hope that this will be the first phase. We hope ultimately that we will be able to do the same thing throughout the park. And we've had some people approach us and say, what are you doing? Because it's pretty invasive when you first go in there with the machinery to chop down all of the invasive materials. But we've had a lot of experts look at this and make recommendations over the years that this should be done. And other organizations and parks that have done this have been extremely pleased with results a year or two afterwards where things start to reemerge. So we're very excited about it. So that's a quick synopsis of 2024. Maybe we can go to the next slide. These are just some pictures of some of the completed projects. I'll point out that we installed our third benchmark sculpture late in the fall. For those of you who are not familiar with this, these are sculptures that are really sculptures, but they also function as benches, and they've been extremely well received. And this coming year, we're hoping to install one more. So I think we can go to 2025. 2025, again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but I'll point out that probably the two things that we're going to focus most of our attention on are, again, completing the planning for the Merritt Parkway Trail Improvement Project. And I think some of you have heard me talk about this in the past, but for those of you familiar with Waveney, there's the trail that abuts the Merritt Parkway. And one of the things that we've heard over the years from park patrons and users is that they'd love to see that trail improve, to attenuate sight and sound from the Merritt, and to just visually make the trail more interesting. So over the past couple of years, and frankly, this has taken us longer than we would have anticipated initially. And that's one of the reasons why we haven't spent as many of the monies that have been allocated at this point in time. We've been involved in extensive survey work, tree inventories, wetland surveys, topographical surveys. All of those were finally completed sort of midway through this year, and we were able to hand that material over to our landscape design firm, which is a firm called Heritage Landscape Designs. They've done a lot of work in public parks. They're extremely familiar with Olmsted designed parks. And they are now in the initial stages of looking at what are some concepts for how we can improve this trail and achieve the objectives of attenuating sight and sound or mitigating sight and sound, as well as potentially making a more interesting and beautiful trail. So that, again, a big part of the focus this year will be trying to complete all of the conceptual planning. And then our hope is that that will be done by the end of the year. And then beginning next year, we can start getting some construction drawings and pricing in place. And maybe there's a possibility at the end of 2026, we'll be in a position to begin doing some of the work. Another thing that we will focus on this year is extending the woodlands restoration project. We may just focus on the 15 acres that have been cleared, and while over time, naturally, a lot of native plant species should reemerge, we may try to accelerate that process by installing a number of native plant species in that area. But if the budget is available, we'll also consider extending that project into other parts of the park. So those are two of the really significant things that we're going to be focusing on this year. And then I'll allow you to sort of at your own leisure read through the rest of them. We're also, one thing I'll just point out right now is that in September, we're hoping to have a significant fundraising event in the park to mark our 10-year anniversary. So we're excited about that. And if we go to the next, these are just more pictures of some of the projects that we're focused on. And if we'll go to the next one, this is a rendering just to give you a little idea of what we're talking about. And I'll mention that this is very, very, very preliminary, but this is just a rendering of one concept for how the trail might be improved. And you'll notice that the trail goes from being sort of a straight line that abuts the Merritt Parkway Trail to becoming a more curved trail that will follow the topography, the natural topography of the park. There are some other concepts that leave the trail essentially where it is, that involve more sort of movement of land and more landscaping to sort of block off the Merritt Parkway. But I would say the more we think about it, again, we're very early, people seem to be gravitating towards this plan, which uses some of the natural topography to move the trail inward away from the Merritt Parkway Trail. And that's also actually in keeping with Olmsted design, which tended to resist sort of just straight lines. So again, this is very early stage, but this gives you a little hint of what we're looking at. So I think we can go to the next slide. So this is somewhat of a back of the envelope slide, but this slide is designed to demonstrate that we have the projects in sight that we believe will easily be able to absorb the town allocations. And so with that, I would just say, again, thank you very much for your support, and I'm happy to answer questions about any of this.
Anybody have questions? Victor?
Yeah, so for fiscal year 24-25, we allocated $300,000 of bonded capital. And was there anything, and apparently it has not been spent? And is there anything that's preventing you from spending it, or is what's?
Well, I would say a couple of things. Number one, when this dedicated funding was first put in place, and this was the former administration, it was noted that some of our projects can be pretty choppy. So it was kind of acknowledged there may be years where we don't dip into and spend all or some of that allocation. And we were told that's okay. It can roll over and accumulate. And in some cases, there probably were projects that we could have pulled some of that money into. Instead, we funded them exclusively privately with the thought that we'll allow these allocations to basically build up, because we knew that this Merritt Parkway Trail project was going to be coming along, and that's going to probably be a seven-figure project. As it's turned out, I'd say we're probably a year behind schedule from where we wanted to be. I would have hoped at this point that most of certainly the conceptual planning, if not both the conceptual planning and the construction drawings, would essentially be complete. But the survey work and other things just ended up taking far longer than we anticipated early on. So that partly explains why we haven't used not only last year's allocation, but the full allocations from some of the prior years. But I will say that we were given directions at times that, hey, it's all right to roll that over. And in some ways, maybe it's better to save that up for a really big project than to piecemeal it out with a bunch of smaller projects. You know, we can look at that in hindsight and say maybe we should have done some things differently. But again, I'm very confident that those monies will be spent. And indeed, I think we'll need more. That's why, even though I understand the reason for not allocating any more this year, I respect that. But I'm also hopeful that if we come to you in a few years and say, it's been several years since you've allocated to us, we need more, there's not going to be, well, you know, we don't really feel like doing that anymore. I think that would be a problem.
Yeah, with the only direction would be, it has to make it specific.
Yes.
You need 200 for a stone wall, you need 400 for the thing, whatever that may be, then that's easier for us. That's the only point. It can't be just an unspecified pot.
No, I understand.
You got, yeah.
I understand. But I also want to be clear that it was understood that that would be an unspecified pot.
Oh, I know.
And I want to make sure that people understand it wasn't as though we just could willy-nilly spend it. We have 4 town officials that are on our board. So they are aware of what we're doing. And anytime we do a project and draw upon those funds, we have to go out and get approval from the appropriate bodies. It did speed things up, knowing that the money was already there and we didn't have to go through an entire budgetary cycle.
This is no reflection on that. Your team and everybody's been amazing. This is all about the bond council saying we can't do that
Mhm.
anymore.
No,
That's
I
all. It has
understand. I
nothing to do with any trust or any transparency or anything like that. That's not even a discussion.
Understand completely.
Yeah. Other questions?
I just had a question on the woodlands management restoration. It seems to be a big range, right? 120,000 to $1 million. Is that different scope of project or?
Yes. So initially, the thought was we'll do the 15 acres around Jenny and Meadow. But ideally, we might want to, if that works well, we may eventually over the next several years want to expand that to other areas of the park. And so, you know, the initial 15 acres that we did cost about $125,000. And there are second and third phases of that we can actually work on. You know, it will cost more money within those 15 acres to actually install, plant some native species of our own to accelerate that process. But if you repeat that in other chunks of the park throughout, you can easily get up to, you know, $1 million, I would think.
Yeah, it isn't like you're gonna put the rest in one chunk. It's you would.
This would be something that would be
120
staged over
staged.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks.
What's the biggest cost driver of the trail project? $1.5 to $3 million?
I would say at this point in time, we don't know. Until the conceptual plans are really done. The initial range was given to us by one of our landscape designers who said, I think this is sort of back of the envelope, a conceivable range, but it's going to depend on what elements you use to mitigate sight and sound. For example, one idea is let's berm the entire length of that trail. Right now, there are some berms that the Lapham family actually had installed at some point in time, but they're not throughout the entire trail. If you started to do that amount of you know, earth moving and whatnot, that's a big project. But at this point in time, it's premature to really, I think, narrow in on an exact cost for that until we understand what some of the design options are and what some of the elements the landscape designers are going to recommend. The good news is, I think, design or where we seem to be leaning, which is to possibly begin moving the trail in and using some of the natural topography, I think has the potential to be actually less expensive than if you keep the trail and try to create either a landscape barrier or an earthen barrier across the entire length of it. So by this time next year, I think we'll likely have a better idea of what the range is going to be in terms of cost and exactly what the cost drivers will be. But right now, it would just be speculation.
Okay, other questions? Okay, thanks for this. You understand where we are,
I do.
and I appreciate that, and welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And
Did they scare you off?
Everything went okay.
Okay, good, good. They're not as bad as they look. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Not sure how to take that.
So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
For all that you do in that park, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Josh and Ann, invite you back down. And Tiger, I guess. What happened? And what is it? It's,
Oh, Tiger, yeah. He's got his.
yeah. You like my picture?
Yeah, so you took that?
That looks like a Christmas card.
It's so funny.
That's what I told him. I said what they ought to do is turn that into a.
Stop saying they. It's my picture.
Bookshop puzzle, and then they could sell it to the
You're
Elm
right.
Street Bookshop for $25, $50 a puzzle, and make some money. No, you'd have to sell them your.
I know,
rights to
I
your
know.
film.
It's it was
Or donate it, and take it as the tax right.
it was just lucky how it all was
Yeah,
just a
beautiful
beautiful
photo.
morning. So Tiger, do you want to give us an update in terms of some of the things you've looked at and done? Like one was Irwin, you know, things like that we've talked about, and you've got all the previously approved, and can we apply any of those dollars to these projects? And if so, what do we say, like Brian did in the Board of Ed?
Right, so we had already asked, we already said we could, defer Irwin, that was about 1.3 million. And then we had
Besides the 172, did we get any other information about?
As far as, no, we didn't get any further
It's
information
really not
back.
a full 1.3 deferral. I mean, if we choose to.
Yes, if you,
You're talking about demolition.
if you choose to, if you choose to demo it now, yeah, you're correct.
You're not gonna save all of the 1.3.
If you tear it down.
If you tear it down.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
we
Okay.
also told we didn't have to do it, since we're gonna tear it down, we don't have to do it this year.
We don't have to tear it down.
Yeah,
Exactly.
until we have a plan for
That was
the
the point.
open space.
That was the point.
So we saved the whole 1.3 this year.
So you just leave a rotting building, okay?
But
I'm just asking, is that sort of who we are? I just want to ask.
Well, is it really,
I'm just
is it
asking.
rotting?
Yes. Have you been up there?
I have, but
Okay.
not inside.
Oh, no, just the outside. This is all for the outside.
Well, you can't get close to the building.
Yeah, you can't get, it's the wood is all rotting.
Do you have an estimate, Tiger? To tear,
We had a, yeah, it was
172.
about 170 to take her down, but that didn't include environmental.
Yeah.
So we need to do some environmental work on it first. That was about 40K to go and take a look at it. And then we would know, at that point in time, we could quantify exactly, since it's a 1960s building, we know that, that's pre-lead paint, that's some asbestos, that's some glazing, that's some other things that are in there that we want to take a look at. And that range was anywhere from 100 to 400, but we don't know. So we'd have to take a look at that.
1.3 was exterior. There's
Just
another 400,000 interior. If we
Correct.
were to-
Right, there was, right.
Remember, using it as a live burn site.
A lot of it's brick, so,
Just talk about what you're emitting into the atmosphere when you do that. If you just do what you just said, let's be careful now.
So what we would like to do is kind of proceed with the, we have monies in this year's budget. If we could utilize those for, you gave us $150,000 that was supposed to be for the exterior, a little bit of exterior work while we were working on a plan. We went and did an envelope assessment first. That was requested, and that was a good call to go and do an envelope assessment for the roof and the entire outside. That's where we came up with the $1.3 million cost of how much it actually would be to do the outside. So we didn't do any physical work on the building. But if we could utilize some of those funds to go do the environmental analysis, I could give you a better feel on where we are for that.
A suggestion then to this board. We recommend avoiding the expense of doing any more work. That's the 1.3. We agree to do more study on what we're getting ourselves into, but we don't have a clue, may be harsh, but kind of a clue as to what that expense would be to tear it down, deal with the environmental, fix the site. We're here to pass a budget. I can't pass a budget without an idea, and I don't want to put a huge placeholder out there. So I would say, let's do the analysis, and then next year's budget has to include what the answer is. Because I just don't think we're going to get this answer. You're not going to have it in a week.
No, I won't have it in a week, but I mean,
Can't
if
vote
we-
on parking somewhere between, I heard 150 and 550.
But Tiger, will you have that money? Will you have that analysis by the time the town council votes?
Well, they can't add it in though.
Well, that you could leave the full amount or a reduced amount, and then allow enough room in it for them to reduce further once he gets the,
Can I make a suggestion? Let's have the budget with the 1.3 out and 100 to do your study,
172.
not the study.
Oh, the study.
You need 40.
40, yeah, but I have existing funds.
And you already have that. You don't need any of that. So the 1.3. And then we can discuss this Tuesday and figure it out, because I don't know that we are, if we leave it in there, or we put something in there, the town council has to take it out. Because it comes back to us. We can't then go take it out. That's the problem. So, and you may not have the answer when they vote, is my point, or a good.
Well, that's why I just asked.
500,000, I mean.
I just asked.
And do we really want, and another question, do we really want to spend $500,000 doing that this year, or when we can just avoid it this year? That's really the question.
No, it'll take them a while to get all the answers anyway.
Yeah.
You don't have the answers by April 23rd.
That's a little bit of a stretch.
I'll say.
Just given the time frame of everything.
You'll have it by August 23rd.
But we'll have a better idea,
Yeah,
but
but that
not,
would
not
put
on
it
the
in
April
next-
town.
Then we'll put it in next year's budget. We know exactly what it is.
At that point in time, yeah.
And, you know, we have sharper
Take care of the
pencils
whole budget.
and, you know, the whole thing is, so it's out. So we don't have to deal with it.
Well, we're not gonna put 1.3 million into the house. The only question is how much do we want to budget to do the rest of the work? So there are two options. Again, we don't have to decide this tonight, but we have to decide it really Tuesday. Do we want to put aside, picking a number, 400,000
Uh-huh.
to
Right,
do the
to-
work that needs to be done to tear it down?
Well,
Yes or
that's
no?
That's just in future, just put it in
Well,
next year's
you just do it.
forecast.
Yeah, that's right.
Put it in
But is
next
there a
year's
risk?
forecast
Yeah.
this year. We don't have to vote the 400,000 this year.
Well, I'm asking, that's an option to do that, to put it in there to approve it. They may not do it, or they may be 200,000. We don't know yet, but the point is, do we want to budget to finish the project, to get, do the environmental, take it down, have the garden club do an amazing job putting something there on the ground, and we're done.
Right, because if not, you're gonna wait a year,
One
year and a
more
half.
than a year, that's right.
Yes.
We're a
well,
year till now to
year.
vote on it for summer of 26.
So your
So,
only risk is.
To have it
that's,
standing for an extra year? Is there any kind of risk that we undergo?
Well, you're paying, you have to keep it heated. You're paying, there are expenses to keep the building up.
There,
So you are paying.
there are monthly costs that we're running. It's not in danger of falling down. It's just a question of that it's in disrepair. It needs to be either repaired or torn down. It's not it's one option or the other.
we've already just, that decision tree's over. We're not
Heard
repairing
it,
it.
that
That's out.
cost, and I can fully understand that, then you tear it down.
That's right. Question is, fund it for now or later. I'm leaning, I get your point now. I mean, we ought to probably just budget, put aside money to take it down and be done with it, and then you'll have a sharper pencil. But we'll have to give you a budget. It just can't be an open-ended thing, and that's all.
No, I understand that. I think it's a good idea. It's, if you took that 1.3 down to 400, that was pretty much the up, that's the middle of the environmental, okay, at 100 to 400. 175 was our quote for the demo. That was, we did not bid that out yet.
Yeah,
That was
that's
just someone coming out,
Bid it
and
out.
giving us an analysis
Bid it all out.
on it. So that's pretty much middle of the road for both,
Okay.
right? So
All right.
that's a pretty good number.
Okay.
And then we wouldn't have to wait, we wouldn't have to come back, and we wouldn't have a building sitting for a year knowing we're going to tear it down.
Exactly right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, so for Josh, for your first draft of this, let's assume it's the 1.3, and then we would hold back 400,000 for all the work that needs to be done on the site. Okay? Fair enough. Just a placeholder for today and just to kind of put the analysis together. Okay. We're all the way on the other items.
Oh, is the analysis going to include any kind of future potential something? Besides
You know,
just like,
I think once we take it down, we have to decide, there are people in this community that said, let's just leave it as open parkland.
Mhm.
And then there are other people like, oh, maybe we could build a facility that's more fit for use that could house not-for-profits or a museum. I've gotten a million different ideas.
Yeah.
But so
We're
I
not
think
building
we should
another
take
building.
time to figure that out. What is the best use for that space?
We're not building.
After
another
it's.
Well, we don't need a plan for that for this
No,
year. We don't, no way would
no,
we have one. There'll be input and opportunity for people to
Yes.
speak up and
Yeah.
have all that. So.
Fundraise around it if they want to do something.
Yeah. Okay.
Plant grass for the. truck.
Okay.
So the other was that we were taking Dunning Stadium down from 2 million to 200,000 for a design, knowing that we wouldn't be constructing in this fiscal year, be constructing in the next.
That's right.
So that would be, so there's a $2 million ask in there. We bring that down, take 1.8 out and just leave 200 for the design for not 2025 summer, but 2026 summer.
Exactly. And then what was your outcome of doing the work for the other projects that had been approved in prior years, but money hadn't been spent yet? Have you?
So we gave a lot back already through to Josh.
Okay.
But I have a couple of others that strictly in the administration budget. So given where we are on designs and where we are workload, I had 4 other cuts. So if you went to my capital sheet on administration, we have $150,000 in for traffic calming for rotary and intersection improvements. I've got existing funds in there at present for what we need to work on. And then should we find designs to go forward at a later date, we would come back for that. So that's $150,000 we can take out.
Josh, you did have that or you didn't have that? Okay, okay.
These four are brand new. So, and then we had $50,000 for camera and security measures. We have existing funds presently that we have not expended from fiscal 20 from previous year. So that can come out. That's more of a tax supported. Then I have bridges less than 20 feet at 250,000. When we went out, we had an allocation of 250,000. When we went out to go look at our first set of four bridges, that was where we came up with Lakeview Culvert. So actually didn't spend any money in the previous allotment. So I don't need the next one because I'm going back out for an assessment now. I've got 250, and then next year, if I need it, I can come back again. But I think the cart's a little bit ahead of the horse on that 250 because of the fact that one of the bridges, or the first bridge we looked at, actually had to be reconstructed. And then the last one, the exact same thing, the intersection improvements for 50,000. I think we're a little ahead. I have existing funds for that, and I don't need that. So those four together total up to $500,000. 400 of which was on a bonded side, 100 was on the tax supported side.
That our tax supported 50,000 can move into bonded, right?
Can they? That's a decision for.
I would think so.
That's a decision for the board.
You've got a proposal though for things to bundle. Yeah. Yeah.
There's quite a few on Public Works with 50.
So we have some guide rails and some others that you bundled, you could.
I added up, it was 450 that could move over.
450.
Yeah. So on page 27, town hall repairs and upgrades.
Into buildings.
Buildings, yep, public works in general, and then 50K highway garage. Later, okay.
When you want to come down it, because we're going to put your PC up and we'll get into it. So, so you gave changes and updates to Josh. You just gave four more.
Right.
The biggies were Dunning and Irwin.
Yep. And then another 500 right now, those four.
Yep.
And then as we walk through the tax supported, there's a couple of others that we saw that we could
you mean beyond the two you just listed?
Well, yeah, either close or not ask for additional, but that
does Josh have those?
No.
Okay,
So
go through those.
there'll be a couple of others that'll be new. So as he walks through,
Give me the money back first before I walk.
Once I put it on here, it's over. I don't horse
Over.
trade. Once it's on here, I just give it to you. I don't really go there.
Projects.
That's what he's talking about. I don't know about ambulance. You're talking about which we're talking about. Oh, him. Yeah, no, that's what he's saying. He and Josh compared notes, and now Tigers has a few more that he's.
But for instance, where do we stand on the Waveney elevator? I mean, that's $1.5 million since 2018.
Right. So the Waveney elevator right now is the final shop drawings are pretty much dialed in. They're at the point now where our last moment of let's just check and make sure we have it right before we go to production. Those came to me this morning. So that went to the designers this morning. And then from that point in time, we have 8 months, in essence, 32 weeks for construction to construct the elevator and have it here. So we're in, let's say, March now. So 8 months will bring us into November. And our open window for Waveney is basically January 1 through next March. So January 1 of 26 to March 15 of 26. That's when the elevator will go in. Right now, we're doing the family bathroom, and then preparing for the installation of the elevator. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in the basement and in the attic. And then the family bathrooms on the first floor are being done right now in anticipation of that work next year.
And there was ADA work that was rolled into that, too. That's the bathrooms, I presume.
Yeah, the bathrooms are up and functional now, but that was part of what all of these came through when the DOJ came through. They came as they got tagged, so we didn't have access to the second floor of the elevator. We did not have functional accessible bathrooms that got tagged. So now we have functional bathrooms on the second floor. Once the elevator is in, now we've got accessible functional bathrooms that are in the building themselves. But in the interim, we'll have a family bathroom on the first floor that is ADA accessible for anyone to utilize during any event during that process.
And sort of the delay on the shaft, like you said, with the measuring, they had to, I mean, on the elevator is they had to get the shaft done so that they could measure precisely for the elevator.
We're within inches.
Yeah.
Because we did not want to touch the paneling and we didn't want to touch the railing. So the cab had to be redesigned several times, actually more than several, to be honest, to try to make sure it fits. It's compliant, and two, it fits inside that. And that was very, very difficult because we are talking literally, we were down to widths of glass panes to try to figure out exactly how much room we had. We had to take some columns that were this way to turn them this way because the extra inch on either side was causing us fits. And once we turned the structure a different way, but then had to analyze that to make sure it would work. So that's where we're at. So it was a very long process.
Yeah.
Trying to get it right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So anything else to give to Josh? I mean, here, I think the question is, we have approved tax supported capital, things like $7,000 for the Nature Center pond and signing and striping and drainage and things like that. If the money's not going to be spent, or maybe it's encumbered and you're on it, I mean, just let us know. But if it can't be spent, we'd rather not do those things and take those funds and use them on other new things that need to be
Right.
done.
That's why
No more fresh money if we have got money here that we haven't spent. That's the point.
one of the reasons why the camera and security measures I gave back, because I've got monies in previous years that so I don't
Right.
need the additional allotment. We were going to give back all the energy savings initiatives. That came to a total of $66,000. Vehicle charging station at $15,000. The rest of it, a lot of the other things are in play. The pond dredging, you're asking about the pond dredging. We went to wetlands Monday night and got our permit from wetlands. We've got to go to P&Z because we trip a requirement from P&Z for 2,000 cubic yards of material being moved. That's in April, and then we're looking to construct in August. So it's not encumbered because I haven't bid it yet. But we're in the process right now of making sure that once I had wetlands with minimal conditions, I can go to bid, and then we'll get to the point where I have a contractor in play, and that work will get done. The drainage work, I've got a project that we've been working with the country club on, and they asked us to defer a year. And this is the year we're going to do it. I just need to bring it to the Board of Selectmen and have it done. But that's a large drainage project along Country Club Road, right around intersection of 123. And then the sidewalks are out to bid right now for two separate sets. Got $500,000 at Putnam Road and $200,000 for $180,000 for the bump outs. That's pretty much going to wipe out everything that's remaining. And then we have the monies for this year, the $500,000 for this year, looking to go for either the second set of Putnam Road or maybe shifting back into the downtown area and doing work in and around the downtown area, the sidewalks on Main Street or East Avenue, which are in disrepair. And then from there, excuse me.
Well, let's go to buildings.
Okay.
A few unspent dollars on buildings and some new requests. So have you scrubbed all that? Town Hall Annex, Vine Cottage, the Irwin Park Guest Apartment, all that stuff?
Right. I asked each one of the managers to go through and and I believe that we've scrubbed it pretty well. I can still sit with Josh again.
A lot of it's not
Sure.
that old. honestly.
Correct.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just, this past fiscal year at best. We did close a number of projects, about a dozen or so that were on the list prior. And then the transfer station, we said we would give back the security gates. That was 15,000.
Vine Cottage electric vehicle dock, that $3,000
If I believe it's gone.
right now.
If it's in
Still
there,
says
it's gone.
available.
I don't need it, so it's gone.
I mean, it's
The,
small, but I know that one for sure is coming.
Well, we gave back the other 15,000 that we had for just the charging station anyways. We already are all set there, so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. we were
right.
Gonna consolidate.
I don't know which, said, and then from there, we looked at everything else that we had, and there wasn't anything else, that we saw that we could, get rid of, I believe. The only other one that I had, that I know off the top of my head was the Waveney Walls. I have $100,000 in this year's budget, but I have monies left over from last year. And I've got Keith Simpson working on a design for the wall garden. So there's $100,000 in tax supported this year that we will not need. That's a new cut, Josh.
In FY 26's budget,
Six's budget, yeah, there's $100,000 we will not need.
not in tax supported.
Oh, sorry, it's in bonded, it's 100,000.
Okay.
John, was there anything else?
That was exterior wall reconstruction.
Exterior wall, yeah, so that was 100,000. Good idea to come up, now I'm getting, Josh. 100,000.
That was on, yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Right, so that 100,000 was inside parks. That's why I asked John to come up and walk through the parks as well.
With further look at that, we had 60,000 in fences. With existing money that's in there, we do not feel we need that. So that can come back. That's in the 26 request.
This year's, this one, what's it called?
Third or fourth project down called.
But that was the 100,000.
Oh, sorry.
That was 100,000.
You went for
right.
which one?
This is the 60,000 for fencing, repairs to fencing and backstops.
That's a couple down from that exterior wall. Also bonded.
There's a few other small ones. Under water fountains, if it's decided not to do the proposed one at the track, we could eliminate the $9,000 request.
Why wouldn't you want to do the water fountain at the track?
There's a lot of people that would like that
Yeah,
water
no, I
fountain.
don't-
We'd like to do it, and we
It
figured
doesn't
out
strike me as a big amount, and it's probably a well-used.
would be.
Yeah, I wouldn't, that,
Okay.
and that's not big dollars.
Another small one that can go out would be this $7,000 request in Dunning.
What is that for?
That's for miscellaneous repairs to Dunning Stadium. When the town took over the maintenance of
Oh.
Dunning, there was some money put in operating and some money put in capital for
So
different
you think you have
projects.
enough in
We think we're
operating?
good.
Okay.
Yep.
That's in tax. Do you have that one, Josh?
In tax, yep.
They'll take the 7 out because they have enough. in
Yep,
my
yep,
operating.
So that's it in the infrastructure one. There is one in parks equipment. There's a $14,000 mower in there, a ride-on mower. After reevaluating all our equipment, we think we can definitely skip 1 year.
Okay. All right.
I'd also add that John and Tiger had closed out 2 to 3 times as many projects since then.
Right.
In this year that we're using to fund some of the.
Good.
other tax
Good.
supported.
Good.
Right, and then we've got a couple others that are gonna close rapidly, like the Benko pool. I have to pay one invoice. We reduce the PO down to what the invoice would be. It's just the retainage. So there's a savings of $80,000 there that'll come back. But that's just, and that'll have to, once we make the payment, we can close the accounts, the money can be to go, but we reduced the POs already. I believe it was yesterday, just to keep encumbered what the payment would be to the contractor for the retainage. So there's $80,000 there. So we're looking at each item across the board where we can close and return funds.
What about the Waveney House exterior repairs?
Waveney House.
Since they're slashing things.
No,
2.45
That one
million?
is leaking. That
That's
building
why
is
we,
leaking.
this is why this was behind Irwin.
Yeah.
We just can't do both. Yeah. And we're all in on Waveney. We, you know, at some point, we just can't afford all of it.
That's a good number. All right.
Just correct me, you said,
Right now, so we're gonna know in a month, but that's the estimate that we received from Hoffman and from Architectural Preservation Studios. So we feel that's a good number, but we'll know when the bids come back in at the end of March.
intersection improved that 50, that one you took out?
You, the fiscal 26, kept the fiscal 25, I think it was.
And took this year's out.
Yeah, it took
Good,
this year's
okay.
out, yeah.
Josh has that one.
So,
Yeah.
so if we were.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we had planned on design, construction, we're a little bit behind on the design, so there's no need to give us additional funds, or just rather push it out and then come back in a future year.
But even if we pushed it out, we could push it into bonded.
$1,000 in one, and you can, sorry.
You need it. We're not, if we don't need it, let's just not do it. Yeah, it's not
So
bonded, let's do nothing.
it would,
Yes, that's right. Okay, so if you don't have anything else, you want to put up where we are? I guess I'm looking for two things. One, just to get this team updated on the bonded amounts that have been reduced and the taxpayer amounts that have been reduced. Have you got a way to show us that? I know it's real time.
And I can tell you that
Or even, we need this Tuesday, right? For sure. So we'll scrub it Tuesday. It's okay. Yeah, you have a range for what's been reduced on the bonded side?
today Tiger cut back on 3.3 billion.
Right.
About. And tax supported, mostly on the bonded side, of course.
Okay, 2.3, but that does not,
3.3.
but that does not include Irwin? And that does not
No, it
include
does
Dunning?
include, it does include 900,000 for Irwin. I guess
Okay.
the offset between 1.3 and 400.
And does it include the 2 million for Dunning?
Yep, the offset between 2.0 and 0.2.
Okay,
Yeah.
the minus 200, right? Okay, so you're about 3 million? 3, okay, of,
gave you the extra, the traffic, the extra 400 from the bridges and the.
That's in there.
That's in that 3.3?
Yeah, yeah. The only thing that's not in here, let's see, if there was anything from the last meeting you came to. Hang on.
okay, but just, again, we don't have to do it real time. We'll be here all night. So in the range of 3.3 plus Board of Ed. Correct?
Correct.
And they're about 700?
Yep.
Okay, so we've reduced this 4 million and there's a blend of taxpayer and bonded. That's a meaningful reduction.
Guess there was also the Waveney Park Conservancy, which came off. It's 3.6.
Yeah.
About 180,000 from LoSiP got taken off your pavement, which we just figured out that number, so that came off also.
I gotta put 400 back in now.
And so I think this is on that. Well, let's not debate it now. You'll get it all for us. And do you have a ballpark for the taxpayer reduced amount?
So I can give you
That's a real expense cut.
Right.
It's a legit
I
expense
can
cut.
give you a ballpark and kind of what we've been working on.
Okay.
Of course, all the sheet I'll show you now was produced prior to all these cuts. So some of the numbers will have to be rearranged, but
Okay.
the bottom line numbers should remain the same or get better.
Okay.
You're gonna send us a revised list.
It will be revised, yep, for Tuesday. You have the initial list on your tablets. And I'll just share on my screen right now, kind of what we've been looking at.
You remember while you're pulling that up, we were looking for 3 things in the process of this budget season this month. Reduction in capital, reduction in bonded capital, reduction in expense, and we know we're gonna get some revenue from the bonded premium. So we wanted to reduce the amount raised by taxation, and we would have probably something like 3 million to play with there, combination of the bonded premium plus what we're reducing here with taxpayer supported capital. Don't know what that's gonna be, but sounds like we're in the range of the goals we were looking to achieve on the two, on reducing costs and reducing capital expense. Okay, so what do you?
On the leftmost side are just a list of the tax supported capital projects. The first set of numbers are the dollars associated with each of those projects. And then kind of the 4 following columns are the different avenues we've kind of looked at for offsetting those or finding other funding for those. The first column, it represents capital projects that fall under kind of a similar subset that would be sensible for bonding.
Okay.
For instance, under the town buildings department, there's several projects that really are to do with repairs and upgrades to the town buildings. So the town hall repairs, EMS building exterior repairs, Parks Garage repairs, Lapham Center Garage, Irwin Gore and Highway Garage building. So those are a sensible grouping for kind of a general town buildings repairs. There's a couple other ones within DPW, what might be viewed as kind of like a road safety and markings, the guide rails, the striping and signage, the road striping and highway. And Tiger's making it tricky because there's an intersection improvements for 50K that was bundled in there too. So that'll be cut out. And that's why this is kind of a moving target.
Okay.
And also for the Board of Education, they had several that were to do with walkways, sidewalks, and so on. So it was kind of a general catch-all for a board of Education or school walkways that represented 30, 20, 20, 50, and another 30. But I believe they cut one of those in this past meeting. And so that represented about 486,000.
Okay.
If I'm just guessing, it's 50,000 came off from Tiger, and I think it was probably a 30,000 that came off from the Board of Ed.
Okay.
But it's still in the ballpark of 400
Okay.
plus thousand that could be taken off there.
So that's the way to look at this. That's 1.7. You just took 400 and could buy through the bundling that we proposed. You can bundle that and bond that now. That comes right out of the off the taxpayer list.
Tax, correct.
And what are the cuts?
Outside of that, while Tiger and Board of Ed and other departments have been closing projects, we naturally kind of accrue fund balance within the tax supported capital fund. So we utilize that to just as an offset for some of these projects.
Okay.
And there's some of our smaller ones. We kind of offset a lot of fire, their department, some of their offsets, fire hoses, equipment. So it's 10, 15,000 or so. We were offsetting cameras and security measures until they evaporated. And the town parcel survey and tree replacement got put into that grouping as well as highway equipment refurbishing for 25,000. And a couple other parks projects, the field improvements, safety repairs, AEDs and picnic tables and resurfacing the track. And so that amounted to about 350,000. And so that number, because of the removal of the cameras, we can find another project that works with and just carry that into there. So that 350 is a solid number that we can kind of make work with any project within there. So that's in addition to the 400 plus thousand that gets taken off. And in addition to that, there's also some remaining bond premium money that is kind of beyond its lifetime for spending on offsetting interest on the debt. So we have to spend it on
Projects or something,
projects
yeah.
that we can kind of authorize for bonding. And this year we don't have that much of it since we've been spending it down over previous years. So this is offsetting IT, hardware, software, and WAN hardware, software, as well as the schoolhouse apartment patios and the vehicle replacement for DPW, the 50,000 there, as well as West's water heater and kiln replacement. And since these are kind of bond authorized projects, they have to have a longer lifespan, about 10 years or so or greater. And so that amounts to about 220,000 that comes off. And kind of lastly, we always kind of take a look at the extra duty fund and analyze what the fund balance is there. And from a tax supported capital standpoint, we're basically offsetting all of the police department's tax supported capital. I think that amounts to about 85,000. In addition to that, we're offsetting, I think, all of the remainder of the PD's capital, the bonded capital ask as a whole, which includes their cars, and I can't remember what the other larger item is. I can tell you in a second. Police vehicles for 213,000 and 60,000 for their duty firearms. So those will all get moved to the
Okay.
other column and
Okay.
offset there. And so all in all, the rightmost side kind of represents what's remaining beyond, after all of those have been kind of removed out. And that leaves us with about 593,000.
Well, you did it.
Yeah.
More or less.
More or less.
Pretty
yeah.
good. That's $1.2 million reduction. And that includes all the cuts we just talked about.
It does
There
not.
will be a few more.
Right, I mean, those underlying numbers, the 486.
It goes up and down a little. Okay.
They'll move around a little. The tax support capital fund balance, the 350, the 220, and the 85 won't change because they're good.
Okay, so we can say we think we've reduced the bonded capital by something like $4 million, 3.5 to 4. And we reduced the amount raised by taxation by about $1 million. We'll get this fleshed out now over the next few days. That's good work. Okay, I got it now. Okay, anything else?
That's all.
Anything else from this group? That's it. I mean, that's just a good summary as to where we are. This will get all pulled together into your spreadsheet and your summary for us to
Yeah.
see.
On Tuesday, I'll have like a updated scorecard of everything that's been done and
Okay.
an updated set of summary sheets as well that kind of show where we're at for the final discussion.
And you'll have the bond premium out so that we can put into the revenues. We'll know what that number is. Okay, okay. And I don't think we did anything terrible. I feel really, I mean, John, you're still talking to us. Oh, you hesitated. You did hesitate there, so.
You got a water fountain.
You got a water fountain. But Tiger, all I mean, kidding aside, we had a lot of capital on the list. We still have a lot of capital, but you're okay with the prioritization? Okay, all right, that's important. Okay. That, I think, is our agenda. Anything else? Did I miss anything?
No,
That gives us a good sense as to what we'll have, and we'll have it all in advance of Tuesday. Tuesday's public hearing, so we'll start the meeting with that. I might make a few introductory comments, but pretty much there'll be public hearing, and we'll go through whoever wants to have their comments heard, and then we'll go into this because we have to get it ready for Thursday's vote. And if there's any other moving pieces or anything at that point, we'll have it all ironed out before Thursday. Okay?
Okay.
Is that a plan, everyone? If nothing else, motion to adjourn? Nick, second. Maria, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, none? Thank you, everybody.